What is going on, everybody? It is episode 476 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett. I am here with two gracious guest hosts today helping me out. First, straight across from me, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for timcast.com. I feel like I haven't been here in a minute, and I am very excited because we're back with one of the OG cast members. We even predate Mary. It's our good friend Dane.
Hello, everyone. Dane Font here, marketing man extraordinaire and the patron saint of White Boy Summer.
Yes, you are. I haven't heard that one in a while.
I know, I brought it back.
What happens to White Boy Summer in the fall? Is there like a white Boy Autumn, or is it just strictly a summer thing?
I was told we're in Christian Girl Autumn right now, so that's different. So I don't think you can technically be part of Christian Girl Autumn.
But what happens to men during autumn? Like, there's White Boy Summer.
We hibernate.
Oh, okay. You just rest. You take the time off to watch football and wear flannels and
just
recharge.
Rest, recharge, so the vibes for the next White Boy Summer can ensue.
That's exciting. Do you have plans for your White Boy Summer 2024 campaign?
Can't say.
No?
Can't say.
I figured you'd go looking for a Christian girl for Christian Girl Autumn.
He can't look for Christian girls because he's married. He already has a Christian girl. How dare you imply that he is looking for other extra Christian girls?
I would never do that.
Put your wedding ring up. Show the people. So married. Wow.
Very good. Guys, yes, Mary is in California right now. She did Whatever podcast yesterday. She'll be doing it again tomorrow, so be sure to go ahead and check that out, tonight's episode. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. Dave Chappelle, audiences walked out on Dave Chappelle after he got into it about Israel-Palestine, which leads me into something else I want to get into, which is the Writers Guild of America refused to issue a statement on all of this, and I collected a bunch of articles of a bunch of celebrities who all of which have gotten basically backlash for speaking on it, and I wonder, what the hell is the benefit of it all? Like, are we that self-centered that we feel like our opinion needs to be heard about everything online, right? So, like, especially when it's detrimental to your career. And for most mainstream celebrities, they're not the same as your typical influencer who does benefit from online drama and stuff like that. The average celebrity is more insulated. They don't need that. So I always wonder why they need to talk about it at all. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about this article in which the producers of James Bond do in fact confirm that it will be updated for modern audiences, as you guys know, is the death knell to just about any franchise. But I have more in-depth thoughts in relation to the last two people who have played James Bond, because I have questions about what that would actually even mean in today's culture, so we'll get into it. Also, Eugenia Cooney is back in the news because apparently her most recent stuff has actually freaked out her fans so much that they called 911 and tried to get like the local sergeant to go look in on her because they're very worried about her appearance. So we're going to get into that. We got a bunch of other stuff, so if my gracious guest hosts are ready, we will get started. Hannah Claire, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Dane, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, guys. So before we get started, would you hit the like button on this video, and would you subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed to this channel already? We are on our way to 75,000 subscribers, so thank you very much for that. Turn the notification bell on so that you can be notified anytime one of these episodes goes live, and also remember to share these videos with your friends because we want more people to come in here, hang out, and then hopefully they too will subscribe to the channel. Remember, all super chats $20 and over, we will interrupt the discussion. We will read that super chat right then and there, and then I will do my very best to get back on topic. And as I know, a lot of you probably enjoy laughing at me and watching me try to struggle to stay on topic because I have a very, very short attention span. So let's go ahead and get started then, shall we? Here's some interesting news. So Isaac Gonzalez is being rumored to be playing Wonder Woman in James Gunn's DCU. This is interesting because we have had conflicting reports saying that Gal Gadot would in fact be coming back for Wonder Woman 3. No, she won't be coming back for Wonder Woman 3. I actually don't think that this is a horrible idea if I was to go on its face, because look, she's what the closest you get to like a rising movie star these days. Most of her roles are in movies, not television shows. She's 5'8" or 5'9", so she's actually, I think she's taller than Gal Gadot. Anyways, and you know, I don't want them to keep some people from past movies and then add some new people, keep some old people. I think they should be rebooting everything from the start anyways. And the reason why people are saying this is because she commented on like a picture that James Gunn posted of Wonder Woman where she just said, "This image is the one." And it's really interesting now how any celebrity can start any type of like like buzz about themselves just by leaving a comment on something like that. Like the smartest are the younger younger actors and actresses who know how to use this to their advantage.
People are only assuming that she's gonna be Wonder Woman because she left the comment.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yep. Well, I mean, yeah, that's all you really have to do these days to get. So who knows? But it's absolutely possible that something like this happens. And if it's not somebody that doesn't care about this stuff, why would she comment anyways? Unless, of course, it's just an industrious young actress.
Maybe she's a super fan. Maybe she really likes this image. She appreciates his work. It's not like she's trying to get cast. But I do think it's interesting how much social media and the conversations that happen online influence casting. I'm going to reference my favorite thing because I'm the co-host today. When Gilmore Girls, Netflix did a revival, like 4-episode arc of Gilmore Girls years and years after it came off the air. It had kind of a contentious reason for coming off the air back in the early 2000s. I think it was early 2010s.
What was the reason?
So Gilmore Girls is written by a woman named Amy Sherman-Palladino, and her husband Daniel Palladino is the co-producer. And at the end of season 6, or during season 6, they were trying to negotiate, I think it was Warner Brothers, about their contracts and like different things, and they could never come to an agreement. And so then the Palladinos that had written this show that is known for its writing left. And there's a 7th season that people will say like you should just skip it because the character arcs kind of get crazy and the writing is different, and the Palladinos who invented this whole thing were involved. But Netflix brought them back when they did this 4-arc revival. And you had like Lauren Graham and different actresses being like, we're so excited when the project got announced. I know Lauren Graham like posted a picture with like a jacket that had the Gilmore Girls logo, being like, I stole this from the costume closet all these years ago, and now I get to bring it back. And Melissa McCarthy, who you guys probably know from all kinds of stuff now, she was one of the main supporting actresses on Gilmore Girls every season, and she commented on Lauren's post with this jacket being like, we're bringing back Gilmore Girls, being like, wow, I wish I had gotten contacted about this project, like I would love to be involved, guess I'm not going, like very salty. And they ended up writing her in
because she made the post. If she didn't,
but also no one would
forgotten.
have known that she wasn't involved, that somehow she had been cut out. And there's all sorts of like discrepancies over, was she always going to be a part of it and just hadn't gotten contacted yet? Did they write her in? I don't know. She does make an appearance in it, but I find that interesting. You're able to leverage your public position to sort of either get cast or have say in a project that's coming out.
Funny that you mentioned that about they stopped writing. You said the 6th season?
They wrote all the way through the 6th season, and the 6th season's ending is supposed to be as if, because they weren't sure even the show would keep going.
Yeah.
And so the 6th season's finale is supposed to kind of work as a potential finale for the series. Yeah. And then they had a whole other season, and
it's funny because
I could talk about this ad nauseum, but we don't have to.
The same thing happened with Aaron Sorkin. He left The West Wing.
It's a good show.
Towards the end.
Yeah, I like The West Wing a lot.
Of people
Gilmore Girls?
I've never seen The West Wing.
Oh, you should watch The West Wing.
West Wing is cool. Gilmore Girls is cool, and I think even though it sounds like a girly show, its script is so thick and it's so full of references that you can get into it even if you're not like initially going to pick.
It's just a bunch of quippy chicks.
Yeah, you learn stuff. And also, I remember in high school, we used to have, my freshman year of English, we had this thing where, we had like vocabulary words we had to learn. And one of the things we had to do was like get extra credit if we could cite them out in the real world. So if you read it in a book or you heard it in a movie, and I would hear the words in class and remember what episode of Gilmore Girls they were on because I'd watched the series so much.
Jesus.
Then watch it over the weekend and write it down at like the timestamp and turn it in.
You're doing like IMD trivia like Brett?
Yes.
Kind of, but it's like I can remember the lines where that word was used, so I just had to find it.
It's funny because The West Wing had Allison Janney, and she just I just had to watch her. She's like this. She played the guidance counselor in 10 Things I Hate About You. The one who writes.
What is she playing West Wing?
She's the press secretary, right?
Yeah, she is. Sorry, I never know anyone's name.
Right. So she plays like this ruthless military person in this new movie called The Creator, which is it's this movie about like artificial intelligence and droids, and the hardest thing for me to believe in the whole movie is this old lady is like this ruthless military general because she's very thin and she just doesn't look like the prototypical
That's
bad
not very
guy.
progressive.
It's not very progressive of me. That is for sure. All right, guys. So if you were wondering if Martin Scorsese was going to win the box office this weekend, he did not. Taylor Swift beat him at the box office again. 2 weeks in a row, her movie, For All of the Taylor Swift Cultists, has in fact topped the box office. It made $32 million this weekend, which is a steep drop off from week 1 to week 2. But Scorsese's movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, only made $23 million. But at like 3 hours and some minutes, I'm waiting till that thing's on streaming. I'm not going to a theater to sit there for like 3.5 hours to watch a movie. I did it for Nolan for Oppenheimer. I'm not doing it for this.
I'm a huge DiCaprio stan. Like, I'm one of those that's like, he's the greatest actor of our generation, but I don't think I could sit through 3 hours. Like, The Wolf of Wall Street could have cut at the middle part.
Does it feel like movies are getting longer,
Yes.
even though our attention spans are getting shorter? So what's the disconnect there? Why do they know that like 30-second reel videos are more popular?
It makes no sense. What's funny about it is like years ago when Zack Snyder was making his movies that Dane loves so much, they actually had to fight with him on it. And the reason, I'm being sarcastic. Dane hates those movies, but
I have no opinion.
He hates Ben Affleck as Batman.
Oh yeah,
but the point is like he fought for like his long cuts of these movies, and the studio said no, and so they cut these movies down to make these unintelligible, barely followable scripts because they needed to get you in and out of the theater in a specific period of time. Back then, from what I understand, the logic is like shorter movies equals more screenings per day, which means more people can go to see the movie. But now it seems like they're indulging. I don't know if it's because of the success of director's cuts on streaming. The Snyder Cut did like break HBO Max's servers when it first launched. It was like 4 hours long, but that's at home where you can pause whenever you want to and go to the bathroom with it whenever you want to without missing anything. That's very different from like when we go see movies that are like long, I audibly I sigh. I'm like, I don't want to go sit for 3 hours to watch this movie. When we go to a movie that's under 2 hours long, I automatically am already in a good mood going to see it because I know it's going to be in and out in a reasonable period of time. It also means that the director had to do his best to work within a limited time frame, right? You want to see if they can actually condense that story down and make something intelligible that doesn't need to be overly indulgent.
You go. No. For you, sir, the patron saint of White Dwarf December is speaking.
Thank you. I feel like back in the day, when I'd see that a movie was 3 hours, in my head I would be like, oh, this is probably like very artsy, and it's probably worth the ticket price or whatever. But now I'm kind of lean more towards what you're saying, and I'm like, well, they just don't know how to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Because I feel that in media, not only in movies and shows, but in games and books, the hardest thing is to wrap it up.
Yeah.
There's a similar argument made for novellas. So novellas being words, I think they're novels that are under, I think it's 40,000 words. So if a short story is maybe at most 20,000 words or 10,000 words, and a novel is between 60 to whatever,
So it's like
200. It's in between. They're compact. You even like hold them. They're thinner. There's like an argument for them, and they take place in fewer setting, like fewer rooms. There are fewer characters, things like that, and the story consequently happens much faster. And I've always loved them because it's sort of this testament to the author who has to pick really poignant things. Almost because there's a scarcity, everything means a little bit more. The setting is gives you more information about what's going on in the relationships, the things, the way the limited descriptions of the characters are therefore more meaningful. The small interactions between characters are even more important to pay attention to. And I think that's sort of what's missing from these long movies. Less is more a lot of the time because you have to be decisive in what every little thing means. And in some ways, I think that's more accessible to an audience that has a shorter attention span these days.
Yep. And that's bared out by social media being like my attention span due to social media has just been shot. It really has.
Yeah.
30-second to a minute clips is about the most I can handle these days. Also, guys, if you were, but to be fair, her movie is like 3 hours long.
Do you listen to long form podcasts though?
I go through waves where I do. Like I'll spend like a month where I'm consuming podcasts pretty regularly. If I'm traveling, I do.
I love long form content.
If I'm traveling a lot, I listen to podcasts on the regular, especially if it's extended period of time. But if it's like during the workday, I can't really, like I used to have a job that allowed me to listen to podcasts at work and do my job. I can't really do that now.
I'll make a
it's
confession.
different.
I actually don't listen to this style of podcast very often. It has to sort of be with a guest that I recognize or something. I have to have something else going on. I know some people really like, the 2-hour conversational format, and I enjoy participating in it. But as a consumer of podcasts, I like long form podcasts provided they are structured. So the multi-part podcasts that are, each one is like 45 minutes long, but it's covering one continuous case or issue. That there's one the New York Times released, I think it's called, oh gosh, I wish I could remember it, but it's about this case where women went to the Yale fertility clinic, and they were going through the IVF process, and it's called the retrievals. And as part of IVF, you have to like take a bunch of hormones, make your eggs huge, and so you'll ovulate them, and then they like use a giant needle to suck them out of your yeah, it's intense, so they can fertilize them or whatever else. And typically women are given a combination of painkillers, including fentanyl. Well, one of the nurses at the clinic was taking the fentanyl and replacing it with bags of saline. So these women were undergoing this procedure where you're like awake but somewhat out of it. Like most women can't really remember because they're pretty heavily sedated, but it is outpatient. And they were screaming on the table. They were there were women who couldn't go through with it, or they went through with these excruciating whatever. And it ended up being a big civil, there was a criminal and civil component to this. But that one was like, I think each episode was maybe an hour, and there were 4 or 5, and it talked about the case and the perspective and this nurse. And I found it really interesting. I loved that long form. In fact, I almost wished it was longer because it's such an interesting concept of, they presented it from a like, does the medical industry believe in women's pain? Like when they say something is bad, do they believe them? Which it comes up throughout all kinds of medical issues, but also this idea of like, there is this enclave community that is experiencing something, but probably you all can name someone who has experienced IVF, and you look at them and be like, I really hope that you got the pain medication you needed, because this sounds excruciating. So that sort of long form content, when there's a purpose to it, I like. I have harder when it's more abstract and it's like open-ended.
Speaking of long form content and Taylor Swift, by the way, it is confirmed Tim Pool is a Swiftie. Says so right here.
Guys, my work here is done. I keep wanting to respond to this being like, I didn't even make him say this, but I think once you have an open Swiftie on the table, it makes everyone feel more comfortable.
There's several now.
Mm-hmm.
It came up
also
on the
Phil
show.
Responded. Everyone responds to it.
It came up like last week cause I was on IRL and like they started talking about Taylor Swift, and I like put my head in my hands. I'm like, I can't escape it.
Yeah, of course you can't. She runs the world and pop culture right now, and the NFL.
She has the #1 song and the #1 movie in the world right now.
Wow.
Yes.
What a legend.
As well as and not to say, so I did. This was originally going to be cringe of the day, but it does involve her. But I have a question for you. If you are a football fan, this is kind of one of those.
Tim's tweet was cringe of the day.
No. So this
so much shade over here.
Yet. So it's kind of like a which way Western men or which way Western football fans.
Yeah.
Right. So first you have this, which is Taylor Swift at the game, and she's with Brittany Mahomes. If you don't know, Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback for the Chiefs. Here's them doing their they have like their own handshake now. First of all, I think you have to have a friendship for at least a year before you're allowed to have a handshake.
I saw some tweet being like, no, they're recreating a handshake that like Patrick Kelsey does with her husband. Okay. But I don't know if that's true.
That's even lamer.
It felt a little bit cringy to me, but also Brittany Mahomes got like wrecked the last couple times that Taylor has been on the box. So I wonder if Taylor is like trying to be like, no guys, like be nice to her. She's okay.
Here we go. I think it's cringe, personally, but that's just me.
So she's like cheering and stuff.
It just seems rehearsed.
Yeah, it seems like they are trying to like seem like they're closer than they are.
She's trying very hard to appear human when we all know she's very much probably a lizard person. But that's
Which one? Both of them?
That's one thing you could be doing in the private suite at a football game. There's another thing you could be doing at a suite.
Yeah, so I sent this to Brett this morning being like, are we going to talk about this?
Oh, yeah. So Blueface, so he brought strippers into the private box at the Rams game and then proposed to his girlfriend.
Blueface, who's known for his hit like Tatiana or something.
He called his mother a whore today.
What in the world?
His mother.
I just could not get over this Fox News report that's like, so he was at this game and he has a suite, and it's like Fox News trying to very seriously describe like there were women in underwear with no shirts or very minimal shirts. Anyways, and then in the middle of this, he proposed to his girlfriend. Which honestly, that's the biggest twist. I figure if you're throwing yourself at your own private strip club in a box at an NFL game, like you're not the proposing to your girlfriend type.
There's a $20 one here from High Voltage 75. He says, nice to see you both back on PCC. Here's a contribution to Hannah Claire's bank account. Oh, hi, Brett.
Thank you. I'm going to put it directly towards my Research Institute, where I just research things that I have questions about. Like, when do you take someone you're dating to Noodles and Company? That's a throwback question.
Did we ever get an answer on that? When do you take somebody to Noodles and Company?
That sparked a huge conversation between me and the wife.
Really? See, I'm glad this is working.
And her answer was like, literally never.
That was kind of Brett's answer. Brett was like, that is like when you are in thick, you're running errands at Target, you just need to stop and get something. You don't like take someone to Noodles and Company.
But it was funny because I was like, we went to Burger King yesterday.
But she was like, she's anti-Noodles and Company.
Correct.
I'm going to tell you guys this. I did end up going to Noodles and Company. So this, for everyone who doesn't know, this is a question I like posed on our office at random. I'm not really even sure how it started. Almost 2 years ago, right? Kind of when early days of me working here. And Brett had strong feelings about it. Other people were like, maybe after like a third date before a movie. Like there was all kinds of things.
People are asking what's Noodles and Company.
It's like a fast casual restaurant.
It's so bad.
It was described to me as not as good as Panera, but
it's not.
Okay, like whatever. I went once, and the thing is, everything seems like it's frozen in the back, and they like microwaved it, and then they give it to you in a plastic bowl. Like you should just go to the grocery
Mark
store.
Daga in the chat says Noodles and Co is like Chipotle, but for noodle dishes.
No way.
Except it's when I went there, it seemed more like you had to order like certain things.
Yeah, they're
I don't
pre-made.
know.
My favorite, I watched this video yesterday, or not? No, it's very recent. It's like this guy named Jared Benson. He makes these really funny like Dave Ramsey videos where it's like a millennial. Anytime they spend any money, and he pretends like he's in a car. And it's like Dave Ramsey watching you from afar. Anytime you use a credit card for something,
he's judging you.
Anytime you buy a $7 cup from Starbucks. But he had this one yesterday where he's like,
you should just tape a picture of Dave Ramsey in your wallet.
He had this one the other day where he says, where he's like, welcome to Panera Bread. What would you like? And then it's this whole video about how the mac and cheese bread bowl isn't as good as you think it is.
I'm gonna say I will try Noodles and Company again. The location I went to, I was not impressed. I would have rather gone to like Wendy's or an actual fast food restaurant.
There you go.
I went to once in Denver. I was like, never again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if I should be putting these pictures on screen from it. But think about the kids who were in the game. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. There's like definitely kids.
But what if this guy turned a Noodles and Company into his own private strip club? That's what
I'm okay with that.
Because the other thing is, like,
I'm okay with
I am surprised, and I guess I just don't know the rules to stadiums. But like, he threw a party with strippers in the middle of an NFL game, and everyone was just like, don't pan to his box, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, no one, is he allowed to keep his box? How does this happen?
Progressives everywhere are just saying it's his culture or something.
Yeah, like
but he's weirdly trad. Like, again, I don't want to be judgmental of rap culture, but I'm going to be. If you're throwing a strip club, I assume he's filming some kind of music video in there, because that's what people like to do. He then proposed to his girlfriend. Like, I did not think he was the proposing
the mood
type.
was right.
Ellen in the chat says Brett. She's like saying Brett is saying think of the children, think of the children. I'm kind of saying think of the children. At an NFL game. I'm assuming there was no actual nudity, but still, like I'm more thinking of like the poor parent who has to like explain to their kid. Like, well, son, when you get older and you're working as a car salesman and you have to go out with other car salesmen on a weeknight to avoid your wife, you're going to find yourself at strip. I don't know.
Man, you are depressed over there. You okay, buddy?
It just
car salesman, let me know if you're happily married. I hope things are better than what Brett's describing.
So it was just interesting to me that they're like, it's just very much public and people see it going on. And like, if the camera doesn't pan to them, then clearly the censors think there's something wrong with it. Right?
I guess. I mean, I didn't. I'm gonna level with all of you, and I know you're shocked by this. I didn't watch this football game or any of the football games.
Shocking.
When I meet a nice man who's into football, I will pretend to be into football for a while.
Good for you.
But it's not a consistent thing. The thing is, what
this is
what
the
in
guy.
the world, and also why were you like, what's cool? We're doing something where we're supposed to be watching something.
Yeah.
So let me bring a whole other thing and put it in the middle of this. Also engagement. Like, I guess I just don't understand the theme of this event.
This
When
was
he handed
also
out
the
tickets,
guy.
What was he doing?
This was also the guy who had the cops called on him because he posted a video of strippers in his house with his son.
Just like strippers.
Yes.
Well, they're less expensive than childcare, I assume.
Yes,
Maybe that's the way that works.
Jesus.
All right. Hannah Claire was very excited about this. She wanted to talk about the fact that SAG-AFTRA, the actors union, we mentioned it on Friday. We did talk about the fact that they're like, look, you can't dress up in these costumes because we want nobody in the world to have any fun.
Yeah.
But the best part about this is they were forced to clarify their position. They're like, look, we just don't want the actors dressing up in costumes. Your kids are fine. Your kids can dress up as Barbie. Your kids can dress up as Spider-Man.
But then
you're not allowed.
But then you're paying, these big companies that produce the costumes, and then they're getting your money, and you're actually, through your children, paying for the enemy.
Yep.
Contributing to
Not
violence.
that I personally think they're the enemy, but no, I thought that's funny. I was driving somewhere on Friday and heard NPR talking about this, and they're like, you can be a spooky zombie or a ghost or whatever. And I love this idea that we're going to return to like what I picture as the 1950s, pre the spread of corporate television and entertainment, where kids would have to like think like, what is spooky?
Come up with an
I'll be a
actual costume.
scarecrow. I'll be a werewolf. Like they'll have to use their brains and have rather than just going into any store and having like every single or major label. I mean, we should go to Spirit Halloween and just document what it's like, because they're typically all branded costumes that are like video game references or TV or whatever.
I have a hot take.
Go for it.
Halloween is cringe, and you should stop after high school.
Wow.
I know girls like it because it's the only time that they get socially acceptable to dress as sleuths.
See, that's a reason to not like it, though.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
like, are they
to
really
each their own.
are they really
But-
being shamed these days for doing that?
No,
Also,
I mean,
dude, they need the excuse. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, if that's your thing, you got to do it any day of the week.
every
My-
time a girl dresses as a sleuth, like Sia's song that just plays in the background, like I'm unstoppable.
My favorite part of this was that the former SAG-AFTRA president, Melissa Gilbert, slammed them for this. She says, "This is what you guys come up with? Literally no one cares what anyone wears for Halloween." We'll tell that to all the people who yell at the women for dressing like sleuths, as Dane would say.
Well, also, I stand by. Tell that to all the companies that they're theoretically like protesting or trying to negotiate with that make money off of these costumes. Like, it is way better. So some schools, like my younger sisters used to go to a Montessori school, and they weren't allowed to wear character T-shirts. Like, you know, you couldn't have like a Paw Patrol lunchbox. And also, if they don't think they did Halloween, but you know, you weren't supposed to wear like branded character costumes because it hurts the imagination. Like, kids should have to think like, what do I want to be? What's inventive thing? Instead of being, you know, for the 100th time, like, oh, I want to be Bluey, or I want to be, you know, this thing that we're just going to order from Amazon or order from the Disney store. I think there is the thing that bothers me about Halloween is that it's so much about just like materialism now, buying a costume or whatever else that you'll probably never use again. You'll throw it away. It's cheap. It's made of whatever. And there's no like artistry or creativity in it.
She went on to say, "Do you really think that this kind of infantile stuff is going to end the strike? We look like a joke." Yes, you do. That's me saying that, not her. "Please tell me you're going to make this rule go away and go negotiate. For the love of God, people are suffering mightily, and this is what you have to say. Come on. This is the kind of silly bullshit that keeps us on strike. Let's enact a policy that makes us look petty and incompetent at the same time." Go off, Queen. I agree. I've spent most of this strike making fun of the Actors Union and the Writers Guild and calling them bullies, and it's fairly accurate for the most part. I would say that that's pretty true. And I did watch this one funny video the other day. It's this guy's like, "I got an idea. Let's do a haunted house, but it's a bunch of just like everyday horrors that she's like, you walk into one room and your parents ask why you're not married yet, and ask you, and then you walk.
Then
into
you have to like
another
fill
room.
up your tank at the gas station.
You walk into another room and it's a woman, and your parents are asking you when are you going to have kids, and then it's like you walk into another room and
Except in Brett's, it's not his parents, it's me every 5 minutes
Yes,
being like, but why aren't you
basically,
going to get married?
that is essentially what happens anytime I walk into a room with Hannah Claire.
You know, the thing is, that means I believe you could do it. I think it'd be way worse if I was just like, yeah, it's better that you're single and alone. You would be way more insulted. The thing about the SAG actors, you know, studio negotiations, do whatever you want. But it reminds me of like two mean girls at your high school getting into a fight. And you're not even sure who you root for. And honestly, it's good for the ecosystem if they're just mad at each other for a while.
There's a $20 chat here from That's Crisis-tastic. Says, the channel has enough subscribers to allow for channel memberships. Why hasn't this been turned on yet? And get us some custom emotes. Are emotes the same as emojis?
I'm going to claim boomerism here.
Is he saying like a
Little
sleuth
icons.
or a sleuth? Can women dress like Sherlock Holmes? Borax, so good. You know, you can.
This is a heavy super chat. There's a lot to cover there.
There is. Did you know that Sherlock Holmes entered the public domain this year?
That's interesting.
So,
and also that means they're going to wreck it with something awful.
Well, I'm okay. I've enjoyed most of the you know how they made Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey? Mm-hmm. I want to see a Sherlock Holmes horror film.
Do you know they're just going to make some pansexual black chick from Harlem like doing cocaine, selling crimes?
Yeah, but no, that's not going to have any of the studio backing behind it, because they could get the.
Buddy,
It'll get the rights to do it anyway.
It'll just be Locke's Holmes, and the person has dreadlocks. You know, I feel like there's a whole, you know.
Like, you know how hard it is to solve crime as a black woman.
No, like here's the thing. I liked the Elementary Sherlock Holmes show that was on basic, like regular TV, and that had Lucy Liu as Watson. But of course that was in like 2000.
How open-minded of you.
It was in like 2012, so the culture was very, very different back then.
I mean, you know how I feel about these things. Yeah. The thing is, Sherlock Holmes, if you read the novels or if you even listen to the audio version, they're so interesting. They're great. You should do it. Why do we not just make new content instead of being like, huzzah, something someone else has written? Let us not try to pursue any creativity and just wreck this, make this worse. That's what bothers me.
The reason I enjoyed that is because, look, there isn't actually, I mean, like, as far as the content for network television, when you think about how many episodes come in a season, like 22 to 24 episodes a year, they had to eventually start to like piece together stories to basically turn it into a crime procedural. And I enjoyed the way that they worked in elements from the books into this more traditional business model. But you're right. Nowadays, it would be very likely destroyed and decimated in a different way. But also, we're supposed to still get the third Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie, but that was rumored before the actors' strike. So we'll see if that actually comes to pass. All right, guys. And another reason to explain why I think celebrities are probably always mistaken to give money ever. Nicolas Cage gave $5,000 at like this. He like showed up for like a telethon. First of all, I didn't know telethons were still a thing, but apparently telethons.
Thank goodness.
Telethons are still a thing. And he came to this. It's like an Australian kids charity. And he gave $5,000 and everyone immediately said, "Why didn't you give more?" Like, can you, like, if I had money, I would just never do anything for anyone because they're always going to tell you you don't do enough.
Now, is Nicolas Cage still bankrupt?
No.
He had some rough financial times
He's
for a
out
while.
of. He's worked his way out of that now.
Interesting.
Completely irrelevant segue. I saw the other day that the sexiest accent is the Australian accent. Who thinks this?
I believe that. That or like Scottish. Scottish is a good accent.
Really? Mm-hmm. They're grating to the ears.
No, you're wrong.
Is that what women need? Like,
I thought Scottish
it's more
was,
rugged. It's typically very deep. I think it's great.
Oh.
Also, men like women's Australian accents and the way they say no. It's like a whole
No.
thing. Yeah.
No.
I'm telling you, this is what pop culture likes.
Wait, is that really like really Scottish?
Oh,
All
I
right.
totally believe Scottish is one of the best
Just
accents.
watch Peaky Blinders and enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, but I'm just saying, like,
I'm
look.
just saying, no one's come up with a kind of way other than being like, really? But we all know it's Scottish. It sounds like they would get into a bar fight, but also read you poetry. It's great.
Scottish, I can understand. Australians, like, no.
I also saw one of those surveys earlier where they like ranked the American accents and like they were all like increasingly last place.
Southern accent, and I hold this belief now and forever, is the most charming accent in human history.
I like that one. I like the transatlantic accent, and I wish that.
What the hell is the
No idea.
transatlantic accent?
Think of like
Chat, what the hell is a transatlantic accent?
Think of like old vintagey movies, and I'll play you a clip. It's hard. I can't. I'm not really good at impressions.
I see. It's one of these.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Dane.
Look at this, eh?
A little bit, yeah.
Like that?
Cry.
Okay.
But the thing is, partially because of the internet, but for a lot of reasons, some of these regional accents went away. We no longer have them because culture's brought past them. So there is a chance that all kinds of small accents will disappear. I mean, think about, like, I was saying this the other day, but Louisiana. So the Census Bureau reported that the number of homes, so the homes that speak French second to English, decreased in Louisiana. So number one, most homes speak English, but of the homes that predominantly speak another language, it used to be French, right? Because Cajun culture and the French had settled it and whatever else, and that's decreased, and now it's predominantly Spanish. So there's a demographic shift in the U.S. that also reflects these like loss of regional cultural elements. And I think that's kind of sad.
Internet's doing that a lot now too. Like where like people are just, they said like people in the UK were reporting like vaguely Californian accents because of the influencers they watch online and stuff like that. Like
I was in Denmark once or in Copenhagen and talking to a native girl there, and you know, like, it's very difficult for anyone who is not Danish to learn the language and actually speak it effectively with an accent. Like, they can always tell, but they all speak English. And she said, you know, I learned English in school and I practice and I'm pretty good, but my younger brother is even better because he just watched YouTube videos all the time, and it makes it so much easier.
Yep.
I learned English watching Power Rangers.
There you go. There's nothing wrong with that.
Did you learn under a specific accent? Like, that's, I feel like if it's
Lord
Power
Zed?
Rangers, it's like a neutral. Whereas like I had friends I went to school with who were from Korea and they were taught English by like British people. So then eventually they would go to high school in the US and they would have more of a neutral American accent, but every once in a while you catch something that they had learned to pronounce in English with a British accent. It was very funny.
I guess 90s.
You're a 90s kid?
I'm picturing you learning like through Lord Zed. Because of the...
Wait, I think the villain was
or Rita,
the chick with the Cooney
Rita
tits.
Repulsa. Yeah. But I mean, both of them have pretty funny voices. All right, guys, what would you like to see first? Cringe or cute of the day?
Cringe.
Yeah, get it over with.
Okay, this is actually okay. So I have like 3 or 4. I like went spelunking for cringe this week. First one's not even like it's not even a video. I want to talk about this a little bit. So Emily Blunt, this is super cringy. So apparently 11 years ago on a talk show, she like made fun of a fat person. She basically said a waiter was fat. And now she's apologizing for it 11 years later because people on the internet got mad at her.
Nice.
That's dumb on her.
That's really, really sad, right? Like, I can't...
I mean, really, really sad. It's a little dramatic, but it's just sort of like, really, come on, really girl.
Like, it's... I suppose part of it's like, once you reach a certain level of fame, you just apologize for... Like, I imagine The Rock, if he was... I wonder if The Rock would apologize for the stuff he used to say when he was in WWE, even though he was playing a character. He'd still apologize. You know, I bet you he'd still apologize, just because it's not that what he said was bad, it's that you were offended by it, and he wants to make sure that you aren't offended
by modern
by
standards. Also, her husband was on The Office.
Yes.
When in 2 decades, when The Office is maybe not still in as part of modern vernacular as it is now, are all of The Office writers and actors going to have to apologize for jokes they made that you couldn't? I mean, didn't Steve Carell say a couple months ago you couldn't make The Office today?
And they are remaking it. They're making 2 versions of it.
They're making a version of it, but they're not remaking
really?
it.
No, 2. There's an Australian one starring with a female.
With
Michael
the female
Scott.
boss, didn't we try this out with Jan and Nelly? It's a bad idea.
And the second one here in America. But look, like there was no reason to address this at all. There's no reason to even give it airtime. If anything, like I just looked up Emily Blunt in every article when her name comes up now, the first full page is all her apologizing for calling a random waitress fat in 2012.
She's gonna have to date an NFL player and really change the narrative in the Google searches.
That's what I did.
That's what we all are gonna do. If things get tough, we just all find a nice NFL player that people.
I've got one more that might actually break your hope in humanity here, ladies and gentlemen.
Go on.
This is United States NPC versus Romanian NPC.
Amazing.
Ai muzică în gât, gaga, go-go, gaga, să vină dinozaurul, gaga, gaga, go-go,
This guy
ai
is
muzică
from
în
Sims
gât.
2.
Bă, am obosit în pula mea cu gaga.
Wonder if he knows
Bă, dar
Andrew
numai
Tate.
gaga, dai băgați-i sârmă pe față să-ți bag. Vine el drept, numai gaga, dar bă-te că-mi bă,
He's way better.
pula mea
I
cu
don't know.
gaga-ul tău.
She's the originator, though.
He's way better.
Yes. Bad. Amazing.
It seemed like he was putting in more work. That's all I'm saying.
What I want to know is that she's the first one, right?
Yes.
So she just sat down one day and thought of this, let's call it a business model.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay. And
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Andrina says she's not American. She's actually French Canadian. So technically, it's not even an American who did it.
Quebecois mess up everything.
frickin' Canadians.
Yep.
I say that.
That's all I got to say. Yep.
No, it's the French Canadians. Let me tell you.
All right.
I'm gonna get so much hate for that. But.
All right,
No,
guys.
not enough.
I want to get started then. All right.
No,
let's
I
go
want to
ahead.
talk about your business model thing. Like this girl sat down one time and
Right.
was like, you know what?
They'll ask for words, and I'll act it out.
All I have to do is
Millions.
She must have made so much money. I want to see the bank statements on this woman. And honestly, like, how can you argue with this model? She's making money.
She was talking about how much money she made with one of the only people I have banned on Twitter because I truly can't stand anything he's in. Aiden Ross. Hate him.
I don't know who that is.
Good.
Okay.
Keep it that way.
Okay, I will.
It's like, I don't want to get into it, but the thing is, like, they're talking about how much money they make. She's like 12 million or something.
It's got to be. I don't know if I buy that. I want to see the bank statements on that. I do have cute of the day, ladies and gentlemen. People are wondering who I have cute of the day. First thing here, this is from Sam S. It says, "This is my chicken, Sally Mae, boss of the flock of a flock of 18, and my best buddy Rocco Taco. Thanks for the show. I listen to you guys when I'm cooking or doing dishes."
What's the poopy's name?
Rocco.
Sally Mae. This is Sally Mae.
No, but what's the dog's name?
Rocco.
It's got such pretty eyes.
Yes.
Aw, what a
What a
baby.
champion.
Very, very cute.
I want more pictures of this dog. I feel like one is not enough, you know?
Let's do one more here. This is from Matthew. It says, I don't even know how to pronounce that first part there. Does anybody know how to pronounce that up there?
I can't see it.
Cassoulet and relay.
Okay.
I don't know.
Sounds
It says,
great.
same routine every day. We get a lot of chickens here. We don't get as many ducks, so it's good to see ducks.
It's nice to have the representation.
Yes,
it's
it is.
good.
Very good.
He is busy. What is he doing?
He's very busy.
Bathing.
All right, guys. If you guys do have submissions for Cute of the Day, remember, hashtag PCCPets, hashtag Cute of the Day. Tag me and popculture_show on Twitter. That way I will have access to it, and I will put it in there, and we'll get it on track to be shown this week. So thank you for that, guys. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So
we're starting?
we are.
Yeah, we have been started, Brett. I don't know if you know.
41 minutes in,
yes.
ladies and gentlemen. Dave Chappelle.
We'll just continue then.
Yes, we're going to continue. Dave Chappelle was doing a show, a no cell phones allowed show in Boston, and he had stuff to say about what is going on in Israel and Palestine. I ask myself continuously why celebrities feel the need to get involved in all this stuff, but it is interesting because Dave Chappelle is Muslim, and he had people actually walk out on the show because he called what Israel was doing in response to the Hamas attack a war crime, and people were not happy about that. Dave Chappelle is about as close, I think, to anti-fragile as you get in Hollywood. I don't think that's going to affect
he's
his
in
bottom
Ohio,
line.
to be fair.
Yes, so basically what happened was he said that students shouldn't be losing their prospective jobs because of what they said about the attack, and somebody basically told him to shut up. And
which is funny because they bought tickets to his show to hear him talk.
To hear what he has to say.
But then they told him to stop talking.
At the same time,
seems counterintuitive, but okay.
On a pretty regular basis, we kind of give celebrities crap when we say, like, why are you going off routine? Why are you a musician who's suddenly talking about politics? Comedy's a little bit different because current events can be worked into the show, right? It's not the same as like a singer who's like in the middle of their set and then suddenly decides to talk about like abortion bans or something like that. I imagine that for a comedian, it's a little bit different because you want to keep it current for things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was at Theo Von's show in DC last night.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. And he
That's
referenced...
really awesome.
Yeah. See, I do cool things. No, he's had a bunch of show in DC's, but I just caught yesterday's, and it was great. But he did, reference the war and whatever's going on, and I'm not going to try and deliver his jokes, but they were funny. And part of it is, I think, unlike a musician that has an album that they're touring with, part of comedy is responding to what's happening around you. It's the same thing to me as when they like interact with the audience. I'm
sure he kept it light too.
Yeah, it was not like the whole time we then thought about this one serious geopolitical issue. It moved on. There was sort of a touch on it, but then that's it. And I think comedians sort of get to comment on news and culture that way, in a way that I get more irritated with actors who are supposed to play other people than being like, and here are my personal opinions.
I had an issue with Chappelle with one of his like first specials where he started to be like kind of philosopher king-ish, because I was with Anna, a cousin of mine, and she's the kind of person that like laughs hysterically at stand-ups, and we usually watch them together when we're hanging out. And I remember I put Dave Chappelle's thing on, and she didn't laugh once. Oof. I was like, Anna, what's going on? She's like, he hasn't made a joke.
He's too much commentary, not enough.
Yeah.
His style of humor is different though. Like he weaves more in. It's not like it's punchline.
No, but I feel like it kind of hit me and kind of showed me, the echo chambers that I'm in.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's a joke. He's, talking about the current situation.
But that's because it reinforces what you already agree with, right? Like I think all of us tend to fall into that, right? Like one of the things that this whole situation kind of reinforced for me was like, look, I saw a lot of people that I normally agree with on a lot of stuff saying stuff that I didn't necessarily agree with. And that's kind of bracing for me to have your viewpoint challenged and then realize that you don't just see the world the same as everyone around you just because they're around you. But someone like Chappelle is someone who is like also like, it's not like it was the point of the stand-up, right? The whole point of the stand-up is a lot different when he's had time to write it all out, more time has passed, and you can actually facilitate something in some semblance of a routine if he then wants to comment about it. It's kind of like when he made the one about George Floyd, which didn't hit the same as his other stuff because he did it quicker, and it seemed like it just didn't have the time put into it than his usual ones did. But his stuff on his last Saturday Night Live bid, I thought was really, really good. Like, I thought his last one on Saturday Night Live was great.
I'm truly wondering, like, what is society's pressure relief valve right now? Because everywhere you go, so
It's Taylor Swift dating this guy. I'm telling you.
Honestly, that's probably for the ladies.
but for the guys,
that.
because okay,
UFC.
my argument that may be the only one, because my original answer would have been, you know, like the Xbox Live chat where you could get rowdy with the boys, but now you got an AI counting how many no-nos you have, so it's like where do you let the scene?
Yeah.
You know? So
like for something like this, like he criticized the attack, but then he called essentially what Israel did war crimes. Like, look, I have to wonder why get into like look, this is one, and we'll get into it more when we talk about the other celebrities, but for someone like Dave, he also, there's this weird thing where it says he denies being in Boston on the night that this happened. So I don't even know, like this has been picked up by every outlet. So
Wait, what do you mean he denies being in Boston?
So it says in the bottom of the article, it says like they reached out for comment from him, and he denies being in Boston on the night when it says this show happened, and there's no way to prove it.
And it's not like it's part of his tour, so it's not like he
it was on the tour date. Like this was a date listed.
The tour date said you were in Boston, and now Dave Chappelle's like, prove it.
Yeah. So
that's a bold move.
Wait, where did it go here? I had it here, and it was just really funny where it says like he denied being. Okay, yeah, right here. So. Let me put it on screen. It says, as a result of this, it divided the audience. Some cheered Free Palestine and others pushed back with questions about Hamas. Again, you're at a comedy show and everyone's just like, could you please just tell me some jokes, right? But eventually some people got straight up and left. Dave, meanwhile, supposedly ended by saying that two wrongs don't make a right. It's worth noting that Dave is Muslim, which could be playing into this. And of course, this is far from the first time he's landed in controversy. His team's denying he was there, but he was.
Okay.
What?
Here's what I think.
What?
Here's what I think happens with him and people like him. So I remember being on a past episode and talking about how marketing before the digital age was all just conjecture.
Mm-hmm.
Because
can you explain that?
So before you had hard metrics, basically,
like actual data.
Yeah. It was a bunch of guys smoking cigarettes and being like, "Listen, it worked out. All the mothers saw it and they loved it, and they bought it for their daddios." But now you can see literally, I
That's the
paid
best American accent of all time.
Thank you. And then you can see I paid $500 for this ad. 100 people clicked, and of those 100 people, 10 bought it. Like you could see literally. Yeah. And then I tried this other one. I paid 500. 200 clicked and blah. You get all the data, right? And so we're at an age where celebrities know precisely how many people are following them. Out of the people that are following them, precisely how many people are interacting with them. So it's past the time where you can't do this thing like, well, I'm a comedian. It's like, well, you're not just a comedian. You're a comedian that has 50 million followers, of which blah, blah, blah.
I was actually going to ask that point because one of the things that like when I first was reading this, one of the notes that I wrote is like how much does somebody who's that size actually know? Because one of the things that I always laugh is anytime one of these movie studios does something right where they do something not completely idiotic, everyone's like, oh, they're finally listening to their audience. Not really. They got lucky. Most of the time they just get lucky. Right? With the studios, they just get lucky. How much is somebody like, and with comedians, is it different, right? Like how much does somebody like Dave Chappelle know about his actual audience? And does it really matter for a comedian who wants to be subversive from time to time anyways? Right? Like, is he really worried? Because I feel like if you're a comedian and you start worrying about the metrics of your audience, it might affect how you do your work, which will lead to inauthentic content.
Well, here's the thing. If you average out all the characteristics of your audience, even then that human being doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like the perfect average person doesn't exist. It's just that so many people present a series of characteristics among different percentage ranges. But just because you have one trait doesn't mean you have the other. And so because I see people usually go with this mistake of they become, I think the term is like audience capture.
Yes.
Where they just get so
Nikocado avocado.
right. They just get lost so much in the sauce.
They have to make content like that, and it becomes like a prison for them.
But then they see their interactions going down, and it's because they don't recognize that regardless of the fact of how many percentage of X, Y, and Z that you can have, people typically they resonate with the authenticity.
Yeah.
And
so even when they disagree with you, they can tell that they recognize authentic content.
It can be like, this is the type of person that I disagree with that I can stomach. You know what I mean?
And I can turn to them for an honest opinion. If what you're looking for is an honest opinion from someone, comedy is a little bit different. Like, one of the things I love, like, I've actually started to use Theo Von as kind of like Theo Von and Joe Rogan are great kind of litmus tests for like how open-minded a person is. Because of the, like, if they're willing to follow comedy like that, they're probably not super closed-minded, because especially Theo Von's not quite this. He's huge, but he's not the size of like a Rogan as far as their follower count.
I think he's just growing so rapidly right now. He's really hitting a stride.
And you look for that. You look for the authenticity in comics. Who was the one recently? Hassan Minhaj lost out on the chance to host The Daily Show because they found out that aspects of his comedy were like made up. And I had like a weird reaction to that, where at first I was kind of like, serves him right, because he was like bullshitting about like stories about dealing with racism and stuff like this.
Okay.
But at the same, like, then after I thought about it for a while, I'm like, look, does it set a great precedent or make the country look great? No, but it is a comedy show, and a lot of times those stories can be heavily embellished, right? So maybe
heavily embellished is different than making up, like, I experienced racism, though. Like, being more dramatic in your telling of something is not the same thing as completely falsifying something, especially when you're ultimately leveraging it to gain political sympathy.
And in the end, it ended up costing him, because he lost out on the ability to do the show because there was backlash to the fact that he made stuff up. And I don't see anything wrong with people being like, look, if I can't trust you, like, because you would hope that the stories come from a place of actual life experience, because that's where your humor comes from. And if they can't trust you, you might lose the, like, then the audience is like, well, do I trust you on this one? Do I think you're bullshitting on this one? And then all while contemplating those issues, you wonder, when am I supposed to laugh? Like, am I really going to be able to laugh through all this? And for all of these stories, it just makes me wonder if, where do you go? Like, where do you go to escape from anything these days if everything has been drawn into that market? You can't go to a concert to do it these days because the musicians want to talk about this stuff too. You can't do it in all these other places. And there's all these other stories, right? So one of the things I thought was the most interesting right here, guys, with everything going on in Israel and Palestine, with all of the way it's affecting Hollywood, the Writers Guild of America has refused to issue a statement on this topic at all because they can't reach a consensus with the people in their industry.
That makes sense.
That's it. And at first I was like, typical, but then I'm like, I don't care what the
I don't need a consensus.
I don't care what the Writers Guild of America has to say about what's going on in Israel and Palestine anyways. Like, I feel like everyone's waiting for the celebrities to reinforce their viewpoints, whether it's on this, whether it's on other socio-political issues. Everyone, whether they tell people they don't like the celebrities or not, they're waiting to have their views parroted back to them. It's why I make fun of conservatives every time some celebrity says something that's not completely brain dead. They're like, oh, I always knew that guy was great. I'm like,
Also,
right?
they're not great on 100 other issues. They said one thing that you vaguely like.
Exactly. So with something like this, you don't know what to do. But then I wonder, like, why would anyone have anything to say? Because you look at all of these. So Mark Ruffalo says something. He basically says, like, I don't want to see kids die, and posts a petition. Everyone says, petitions never work. Gets him roasted online. Tara Strong, who is a voice actor, basically says, like, what's going on to Israel is awful. Gets hate, loses a job. Luckily, she has since got more work since then, so it didn't cost her anything. Macklemore posted like the most benign of like posts that looks to appease both sides. It does not matter how well crafted your statement is. It won't matter. You will still get crap from someone somewhere.
I just don't know.
And then the head of this lady who used to represented Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg, and all these other A-list celebrities, also lost her job and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, why do they like it is like, my question is like, why do we as human beings feel the need to speak on so many issues. I'm not saying this as like a judgment of them. I'm actually asking the question, like, what is it that makes us as human beings feel this innate need to have our opinions heard on something when we know it could cost us something?
Dude, I couldn't tell you, because like it's always bothered me, and I feel like every time I'm on I talk about this, is that, for example, I don't care about dating advice from perpetually single people.
Yeah.
Dane doesn't want dating advice from me. That's too bad.
I don't want nutrition advice from fat people. I don't want career advice for someone that's like doing worse off than me. You know what I mean? It's just...
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Jesus. Every time.
Did you miss it?
No, I never do.
Dane missed it, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
don't.
Dane missed having the crisis meter blow his eardrums out.
Interrupt his point, man.
Yep.
I think what you're saying is totally real. Like, if I want opinion that's worth considering, that I might make decisions on how I conduct myself or anything like that, you want it from someone who's coming from a place of information.
And I don't seek it out either, because what I keep seeing nowadays is like, oh, Brett Dasovic is silent about Israel-Palestine. It's like, why do you want his opinion anyway?
Yeah, who cares?
You know what I mean?
I'm not a foreign policy expert, nor do I have any expertise in the region. And I wonder about the celebrities. Like, is it because they just like we're kind of built up in social media has made us very, very emotional. So we're whipped up into a frenzy by a bunch of images that we see, and then we feel like we need to be heard.
I think it's that a lot of celebrities, when they, you know, if you're an actor and you become famous from that, or a musician or whatever else, they are then also told, you know, you're a role model. People look up to you. People care about what you think. And maybe that's true in your industry, but they then start to feel as though they have to make big cultural points because they have people looking to them for this. And it's not true, but I think it's how, you know, PR agents or press secretary or whatever else, like people who are working on their career, keep them engaging with their audience, right?
What I think is a big contributor to this is that a bunch of people, they have information, but they don't have knowledge about things. And for example, I remember when in the past I would, you know, I'd be in an event and I would talk to other marketers and things like that, and I would hear them constantly say buzzwords, but nothing of substance. And I was like, you know, sure, you said SEO, but did it fit in that sentence? Yeah. And I feel that it's a bunch of people that have made some calculations in their head and they continue to see themselves as brands. You know what I mean? But it's so hard to explain to someone that even though you have a brand, you still, the brand and the product are a separate thing. Like, the brand is how it's like a concept that's being devolved and simplified for mass appeal and to explain the concept quicker. However, the product is the product, and the product should be what it is.
And when you are your own brand, it's hard to differentiate the two and separate them.
Correct. Yeah. And so I just feel that people have made themselves such a product, and they've distanced themselves from the individual, that when things like this happen, they just make the calculations like, well, Dane Font as a product, what would he think? Yeah,
is it like you're saying they essentially function like when big corporations come out with statements about stuff? So you're sort of like, why is Target commenting on this? Yeah. Or why is, why is anyone saying anything? We don't need this. With the one exception to all the things you stated to me is Macklemore, which I think
that's what I want to talk about.
He is fundamentally political in a lot of ways, because one of his biggest hits was "Same Love," which was supposed to be this like LGBTQ same-sex marriage like affirmative anthem, and people still reference it and play it all the time. I think the uber cringy
clip of the girl who has like the BLM like on her cheek.
Oh yeah, the white chick.
That was that song.
I think he also comes from a culture in the Pacific Northwest where being young and hip and being politically progressive and active are married together. And so it's very much a part of who he thinks he is. Maybe he really does believe in these causes, but I think ultimately this is such a complicated issue that we don't need people rushing to try and make statements. And these neutral fence sitter statements are actually worse. Just stop talking.
I'm gonna read his statement here because it's like when I read this, it's proof that you cannot win in these statements. So he says, I have been in fear. I have felt a literal lump in my throat and cannot stay silent any longer. You could totally stay silent, dude. If you wanted to, you could absolutely stay silent.
Literal lump.
Yeah. He says, I condemn the murder of any human. The bombings, kidnappings, and murder of the Israeli people carried out by Hamas was horrific in every way imaginable. My heart deeply hurts for the Israelis that lost loved ones to such an abomination. As a father, I cannot imagine if one of my kids was at that festival or was still missing after being kidnapped. It is absolutely unfathomable, but killing innocent humans in retaliation as collective punishment is not the answer. That is why I am supporting the people around the world who are calling for a ceasefire. It's about as neutral of a statement as you can issue. He still got dragged. And what I was saying before is like, look, the internet is forever and people don't really realize that. But this is when it comes into play, because he has this old clip from him at a show where they talk about him being anti-Semitic back in the day, and everything you say or have done on the internet can and will be used against you in the court of public opinion, and it comes back to bite everyone in these statements. So the options are a couple of things. You can either stay silent forever if you know that you have ever said anything that's offended anyone, because you know it's going to come back to bite you, or you can speak and simply understand that what's going to happen is that people are then going to use those things in your past against you, and you weigh the options. Will this past action of mine matter more than what I have to say now? And I just wonder how they make the value judgments for stuff like this, because I just don't know if I was a celebrity. It just sounds exhausting to be a public figure that feels like he needs to be heard on everything. And also, it's like right now in America, we're in a country that tends to be pretty basic with its narratives. They usually unite around the idea of like white men are awful, and we're in a realm right now which they're not used to, which is a far dicier issue, and they're not used to it. They don't know how to navigate it.
I think part of it is we're saying celebrities are like this, but in reality, we all know someone who has taken to Facebook to say, I can't stay silent. They're like, the local hairdresser, or they're like an accountant at a somewhat large but mid-tier company in the US. They are themselves feeling as though they must speak up about some political issue that maybe they research and read about it all the time, or maybe they have some sort of tie to the region or whatever else. But ultimately, are you the person whose opinion is going to change everything? Maybe not. On the other hand, I know people will say, like, even if you can't potentially influence the policy, you should still speak out about what you believe because it's important for the people who you do affect to consider these issues. I feel like a lot of these celebrities are not acting any differently than like the middle-aged moms who are posting on this, or the super active person you went to college with that you're sort of like, do you even have a job right now? And you've got all these political opinions, like you're spending a lot of time on social media. It's a more annoying because it's celebrity, so we can read into it a holier than thou element. But I think ultimately, a lot of people want to say their opinion, and they pretend like they're obligated to, that they're just, I just had to speak out because of whatever side, I have to do this, whatever else. They just want to tell you what they think.
I don't actually find any of it annoying. I find people's desire to be heard about these issues fascinating, because I don't. Like, I don't feel that way, especially on social media, right? Like, I don't have strong enough opinions on so many of the things that they're talking about, but it's fascinating to me that people with way more to lose than I have, right, would feel so inclined to be heard on these things. And I absolutely believe that they should have the right to do so. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's fascinating how, as a cultural ecosystem, you watch these people have to wake up every day and deal with the fact that what they have to say could cost them money in some fashion, but the need to be heard is innate.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And I think it goes to what you said, which is that people and brands are becoming indistinguishable, especially on social media, where you are essentially an avatar.
The greatest sin of the 21st century is the propagation of the concept called awareness. Yeah. It is truly like nothing. I mean, Dane's being hyperbolic. Everyone take a drink. But honestly, like, how many of the woes of today are from freaking midwits trying to bring awareness about something they know nothing about?
Yeah, I think there is a pressure when you have any kind of public facing platform for any reason to weigh in on things, especially when they're emotional, right? So I'm sure there are a lot of people in Mark Ruffalo's life that he feels as though if he says nothing, he's letting them down on some level. On the other hand, maybe this is a scenario where we don't actually need 100 opinions. We just need to listen to as much fact and objective reporting as possible. Maybe by contributing these sort of lackluster opinions, you are making it more difficult for real analysis to be heard.
But that's just one of the outcomes that's going to come from a free society, right? It is also interesting that I think it shows that there is a thirst in this country, and especially people who are enamored with the idea of like a celebrity's opinion somehow being more valid than the average person. I think there's a thirst for simplistic narratives, especially around the concept of oppression and who's oppressing who. And these celebrities have been kind of raised in that same somewhat Marxist belief system where it's about relaying simple oppression narratives to society, because they've used it in Hollywood for decades and decades and decades, and they're just not used to this type of backlash because they present ideas that are usually much more nuanced than they actually try to present them as. And when they try to do that now, they're getting extreme pushback, and they're not used to that.
Yep.
Maybe.
So it's weird to see this happen because we've always and I'm still always gonna laugh that anyone thinks that you need to have a celebrity validate your point of view. It does not matter. Nor do I think that these celebrities should be any more cautious than anyone else. I think that their managers might want them to be more cautious than anyone else. But it's
I think
it's
in a lot of
like,
cases that's wrong. I think there are a lot of people who are in the administrative side of Hollywood that want people with big platforms to speak out. So if you're the PR assistant, but you feel really strongly about this issue for whatever reason, probably because you went to college at a progressive university, you want the person that you're representing to make a big statement off on one side or the other. I just don't think it's necessary. I'm all for free speech. They can do it if they want to, but arguably if you're really concerned about what's going on, adding to the barrage of noise right now is probably not the most responsible thing to do.
I just think it's so much classier to have the humility of being like, no one needs my opinion on this.
Yeah, I do too.
That's literally, that's what I say just about literally everything political these days. I'm like, why would anyone care what I have to say about it anyways? Like I'm not a Middle East expert. I'm not an expert on any form of politics. I have general views about stuff, but it's not like I'm like, I wish that in some points, like when you hear somebody who's really, really educated on something and they make a point that maybe you could have like said in your head, but you wouldn't have been able to verbalize, like it resonates with you right away, but you're like, wow, like they were able to put that into the universe in a way that I wish that I could speak.
What's the principle that's called, like when people have very little information about something, they overestimate how much?
Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe that.
It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. So yeah, I think it's interesting, and we're going to continue to see this type of stuff happen because it's like you said, they're brands, but they're also individuals, and there's no gap between the two. I do kind of, I do laugh because I do believe that most of these people's careers would be fine if they just decided not to. Like, yes, there are going to be people that are going to say like, you should make a statement about this, but at the end of the day,
but
they can come for you for things you've said. I guess somebody could like make a note and be like, so and so, Brad Pitt, who's remained completely silent on the issue of this topic,
right.
But it's a lot harder to remember that than it is to remember what they actually said.
And there's also the school of thought that no press is bad press. Which, by the way, yes, there is bad press.
What?
Like that, I just think that's ridiculous.
That there's no such thing as bad press?
Yeah.
Somebody says
like okay, so if I made a bunch of presses like Brett Dasovic is not cool at parties, that'd be bad press.
That's
if Brett wants to go to parties, it'd be accurate because Brett is not cool at parties and no one likes Brett at parties. But it wouldn't necessarily be the kind of press that you want out there. Do you understand what I'm saying, Brett? Because you're bad at parties.
Yes.
And we don't like
actually
it.
Just bad at them.
Yes, and we don't like it when you attend them.
He's saying that because he's annoyed that I never go, which makes him feel unwanted.
It's kind of rude though to be like invited and then all of your friends, and then you're like, no, I won't join for anything. I'm just saying.
Because you're bad at them, but we have, in the kindness of our hearts, we invite you to them. So we should be like,
we keep trying to reach out and like build community with you, and you're like, no, I'm better than you guys. I'd rather sit alone in my room.
He should go do some laps, try to get better at parties, go from a 2 to a 3.
Maybe
is what we're hoping.
Maybe that's the thing. Women tend to be the social organizers, and so maybe Brett needs a lady to
There's some strong defamation going on right now.
I'm sorry. I'm again saying that I think you could get married. I don't understand why that's insulting.
No, Dane is defaming me right now.
I don't know. What party have you come to? What party did you attend?
I'm not bad at parties.
How do we know though? Because you never attend them.
That's not my fault. You guys are.
That is your fault.
Would you say you're good at parties?
Yes, I would.
Prove it. You have
Brett, good at parties?
I would. Yeah, I am.
I'm just saying, if you got
so
married,
good, I don't have
maybe
to go
you would
anymore.
attend things and you would be better at parties.
Look, I feel very singled out right now and very
You have
judged.
The problem is that you are single
judged.
and you have to get married. I don't understand. And then we'll go to the best party, your wedding, and I'll stop bugging you about this. You have the power to change this, but instead, I don't know.
It all comes full circle.
Well,
And that's the only thing I want celebrities to comment on, whether or not you should get married and to whom. I don't care if they're about their political opinions, but I do want them to help me matchmake you.
the funny
Brett,
thing
do you
will
think you're
be-
single because you're bad at parties?
Do you think you're single because
No, because I
no
would not
celebrities
wanna,
have taken up your cause? Is
I
their
wouldn't
issue?
want to marry a woman who's good at parties. So there you go.
You wouldn't want to marry a woman who's good at parties?
No.
Okay, put that on the list. If you guys have friends, female friends who are single
They're
and
out.
Are they
not
good at parties?
if they're not good at parties,
Wait,
have them
what the hell
DM
does
Brett.
it even mean to be good at parties anyway?
Yeah, but
Well,
you wouldn't
know because you're terrible at them. Yeah, we know
yeah,
because
we know.
everyone
I am
loves
going
it.
better.
to turn this podcast around right now.
Okay,
We are
do
going
it.
home.
Oh, good. Is your wife there? Because I'd love to meet her. Oh,
Let's
wait, she
go
doesn't
to
exist.
Super Chats, ladies and gentlemen. I'm done with
Wow.
this bullying.
I'm just going to throw it out there that Brett turned us over to Super Chats over an hour into this episode as soon as he wanted to avoid the prospect of getting married.
He
So-
does that at parties.
Yes. Well,
We're
I
like,
wouldn't
Brett, there's
know
no
because he
super
doesn't
chats.
go.
It's called cheesecake.
When he doesn't want to. Okay, this one is from somewhere in the middle. I think it's important that we do not put pop culture icons on a pedestal 1 minute and cast them down the next. Don't cancel like the left always does. I'm not sure what that was in reference to, but
that was like when we
it's not a
started the
bad
show.
point.
Look, I don't think maybe it's because of my the job here that I'm kind of neutral on all of it. I really am. In a lot of cases, it's chaotic neutral. It's I can laugh at things that happen to celebrities, but do I really want them out of the public eye? If that's my job, it's my job to talk about them. So do I really yes, when they say something stupid, it benefits me because I get to then talk about it. When they say something great, I guess they can come up into conversation. But I find it a lot of times these days, I've almost become a weird type of chaotic neutral where I have no strong opinions on anything they say.
Truly.
Other than the fact that it creates material for us to work with. I will say that I agree with Mary that I want the actor strike to be over so they can get back to saying stupid things.
Isn't it over?
No, the writer strike is over. The actor strike is still going. I kind of I do like the idea of it ending so that I can finally have stuff to talk about because it's been so long since they've been able to sit out and say something really, really dumb that we can then make topics about because they can't talk about their work right now.
I want an audience strike.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I want an audience
What are
strike.
our rights? How do we get benefits from all of this? Because I just feel like that's the most annoying part. We pay for this and then they just feed us garbage.
It's terrible.
Let's so Shane H. Wilder is next. You got that one there?
Yep. Shane H. Wilder says, watch whatever last night to support Mary, as I do with the crew whenever they guest. Didn't understand the show. Oh, wait, sorry, I skipped something. When they guest somewhere, my brain still hurts, but at least Mary slayed.
Yeah, she's very good at owning the
Salutes.
at the 304s as they call them these days. I didn't watch it. I have no idea, but I imagine that she hit them with a lot of facts and logic that that took them down a peg. Let's do one more.
200 Walt Studio says Gilmore Girls was great, witty and smart. Not the same when Amy left. New producers didn't understand the show. That's so true, my friend. Lead actors weren't happy. Revival was good. I have mixed feelings about the revival.
What are your thoughts on the revival?
Well, the thing about the revival was in the lead up, there was a big debate over whether Amy Sherman-Palladino would write it from the end of the 7th season or the end of the 6th season. What happened in the 7th where she didn't write it, what would be incorporated. And there are certain things that happened during, it's a 4-episode thing. It's supposed to be 1 per season for a year of their lives. And I felt like I could really just read a lot of Amy Sherman-Palladino's personal bitterness into the characters. And, you know, I really like the Gilmore Girls characters because you don't always root for them. Sometimes you're like, you're making terrible choices and this is bad. But I think ultimately they ended up just being sort of bitter women, which is maybe the reality. But it made me wonder if she had ended on better terms with the studio, if we would see a slightly different structure to the narrative. And because the 7th season threw things off and they had to incorporate it.
I had a silly and incredible superficial take about the show coming back. It was like they looked so much older that it was jarring. It was very,
I think also because the camera quality changed. Like when you were young and also filming in the early 2000s and it's slightly blurry, like it's very different.
One of the things I've loved about going back and watching old shows is I like it when they're not remastered. I like it when it looks vaguely blurry and it's not, and they haven't remastered it in high definition.
You know, but I was seeing some old hip hop videos in super refresh rate where there was a bunch of like frames per second, and I thought it looked so much cooler.
Really?
And Wesley was like, "Here's why you're wrong. I'm a storyteller."
Oh, and then he had
get out of here. I like what I like.
I know.
And then he has to tell you and be all like art nerd.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's what he does.
Do you want to do a couple more or you want to keep going?
Let's
Weasel.
keep going. I want to talk about what's going on with James Bond right now, guys, because there's bad news. The producers have in fact confirmed that the next James Bond, which is going to be at least 2 years out, will in fact be updated for modern audiences, which, as we know, tends to be more often than not the death knell for just about any franchise if you actually want to create something that audiences want, because it's a myth. There is no such thing as updated for modern audiences. That's not a real thing. People know what they like, and that does nothing to do with being updated.
I have a bet. Clip it. This is like Miss Cleo Dane.
Okay.
The new James Bond for modern audiences within the first 15 minutes will have James Bond in therapy.
Ooh,
somebody clipped that. That's not a bad idea, right? Because they would see like a government shrink or something like that, or they'll use it like
an MI6
to be fair, they're kind of ripping off The Sopranos.
I could have seen them do that, because one of the things they point out on here is that they're never going to take James Bond to television. They're not going to, but I imagine that if they moved to James Bond to TV, it would be like The Sopranos, where it would be like an ongoing arc of James Bond in therapy.
He's gonna go to therapy and he's gonna be like, well, James, you know, it must be hard killing all those people. And then they're gonna segue that to why he's a womanizer. It's like, well, maybe you should treat women better.
Well, they talk about that. They talk about how they said that Daniel Craig made James Bond a more emotional character. They talked about how they had to reinvent James Bond when Pierce Brosnan came on, because look, it was just after the Cold War. They said there's no more bad guys. Who's going to be the bad guy in a post-Cold War era? So it is actually true that yes, you do have to update things somewhat because the world changes. But what's funny about it is if you actually look at who the bad guys were between Brosnan and Daniel Craig, you'll notice that there's very similar themes that go on. So the first villain in a James Bond movie for Pierce Brosnan was an MI6, was somebody who worked for MI6, who was upset with the British government, who went on to become essentially a terrorist because he came to hate the British government because of what they did to his parents. He worked together with an ex-KGB colonel. After that, it's an evil media baron. That's still relevant today, is it not? The third villain was an anarchist, which is kind of, I feel like that would be hip now. Do like a proto-anarchist
society, man.
It was an anarchist working together with a billionaire's evil daughter. That's kind of awesome. Mm-hmm. These are all timeless ideas. And then the fourth one was like a communist who wanted to create a space laser. That one takes more to get into. But then when you get into Bond for Daniel Craig, which was starting back in 2006,
he's my favorite Bond, by the way.
Really?
Daniel Craig. Okay, so his first was essentially Lashif, who was a guy who was funding terrorism. So he was like financing terrorism. And then after that, you have the head of an evil NGO, Dominic Green. All of these are still absolutely relevant today. Like, you don't need to change that at all. And then they go back to the evil MI6 agent trope with Silva in Skyfall. So they keep coming back to a lot of the same ideas. So I don't think you actually need to change that. I think you're right. I think the therapy idea is not a horrible one. And the question I had is like, look, they said he needs to be updated for modern audiences. Like, all of the ways in which we celebrate men now are different, but very different from what a government agent would do is probably not that much different now than it was 20 years ago, outside of how the internet would relate to it, right? A spy is still a spy now as he was 20 years ago, but what we as society celebrate in men is very different.
Here's why I think that's going to happen. It's because, so I feel like every time they say for modern audiences, what they mean is for women.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And
but also, I think queer women. I think that's who they think they're chasing.
Progressive women, you know. I mean, queer women, typically progressive, I'm guessing. And I remember the last X whatever tweet, lol, I had that had a bunch of traction. It was what I commented on a girl's tweet where she was like, I just wish men would go to therapy. I feel like it would do so much for them. And I was like, hey, I know you mean well, and bless your heart, but I wish that women understood that perhaps it does something different for them than it does for us.
Yeah, what works for you isn't necessarily what's going to work.
I think you're picking up on two really interesting themes, which is that therapy speak has bled into all aspects of cultures. I just heard a critique of this with the latest season of Love Island, which is not known for its witty banter, but people love it. That they all use terms like, you know, just boundaries, and they use language that you hear on like therapy or self-development podcasts, especially ones that are more popular among women. And you're also making me think of there was sort of this, it's probably still going around, but on Twitter for a minute, people would talk about, especially women, being like, I was meeting with my female therapist for 5 years, and then I switched to a male therapist, and within 6 months, I felt good enough to stop going to therapy. I think that the way men and women approach emotional issues are very, very, very different. And I also think that the industry of therapy has so many segments that are popular right now. Not only are more people than ever, including men, going to see therapists, but also the language that comes with it about emotional regulation or attachment style or boundaries, which I think are good. It's good for people to be able to speak, you know, talk about things. No, I really do. I mean, this is a very female take, but I think it is good to be able to have a way to talk about more meta emotional issues with men, because I don't think men are naturally, it's not that they don't experience emotion, but that they process it differently. And so finding a way to get the genders to communicate better is good. But ultimately, the oversaturation of exposure to therapy makes people think that it's just the be-all end-all answer, which is why I think about this idea that, like, if you see a female therapist for years, you should maybe try seeing a male therapist and see if their approach is different.
I just see, I see what I see with what a lot of people are using therapy for is that they're disassociating and like paying for agency. It's like, okay, so I'm gonna pay you now, and there's this really hard decision that I don't want the consequence to make, and if you make it for me, then I can rationalize it, that like my life going this direction wasn't like of my volition.
Right.
And I feel that for me, adulthood and manhood, what being a man is, you become a man when your problems outweigh your immediate solutions, in my head. Like,
what do you mean?
This, for example, I'm just gonna give like a silly one that a lot of people, I mean, it's not silly, but one that a lot of people have is like crippling student loans. And it's like, I'm not gonna fix this today. Try as I might, you know, I could go speak to Kathy, the therapist, and you know, it's I have to make a plan
and then
for
execute
the
plan.
future and execute it. So my problem, or let's say if like people can have issues, you know, with their partner, with their family, with their job or whatever, it's like usually they can't solve it in a day. So being an adult is, I have this issue, it's going to take some work, I might have to do some things that I don't want to do, but you know, I'm going to do them. Going to do them.
I have a question for you guys. So like, think about your favorite story. You read a lot of books. You're a book fan. Think of your favorite stories. What is a story you would actually want updated for modern audiences? I can't think of any that benefit. I can't think of anything that I've ever liked where, like, if they remade it now, like, I've been very lucky. Most of the things that I've loved, the television shows that I've loved, the movies that I've loved, they're not part of franchises that have been pillaged by these studios, right? They've been, for the most part, left alone, or at least they're still new enough where I'm not gonna have to worry about seeing them redone for another 5 to 10 years, maybe, right? I can't think of anything that I love that would benefit from being changed for the sake of modern convenience.
Okay, I think that there's nothing that I love that I would want to see updated, but I'm going to caveat this in a second. And I have to say before that, if I love a book, I don't watch the movie adaptation. If I love a song, I don't watch the music video. I think that part of the way you experience art and literature is within your own mind and the images that you create and the experience you have while reading it. You don't need to add the flashing light box of any of this to make it more valuable. And that is to also say that there are gorgeous movies that are very impactful that I don't think you need to update. Like, when something is created and has a meaningful impact on you, I actually really prefer to have it in the medium at which it was first created.
There's a $20 one here from DCNC. It says, Hannah Claire, name 10 books.
Name
Just
10
kidding.
books.
Do you want me to?
Go ahead, do it.
Okay, A Tale of Two Cities, Romeo and Juliet, Caesar.
That's a play.
A Gentleman in Moscow. I just read this one called Mr. Penultium's 24-Hour Bookstore. There's Lauren Graham has this book. Do biographies count? There's this one by Osa Johnson called I Married Adventure. There's I can't tell what number I'm on. Just let me know when I hit the end.
We need 7. We're on 7.
Okay. Truman Capote's In Cold Blood is a masterpiece. Everyone should read it. Let's see. I grew up on this series called Swallows and Amazons, which is British children's literature based in the Lake District. You could say Anne of Green Gables. It's also a piece of classic children's literature. There's Daisy Miller, which is a novella. I know I was referencing them before.
One more.
You could do Attorney of the Screw. Again, that's also a novella.
Guys, it has been done.
She did it!
Incredible. And no Harry Potter.
Not a single Harry Potter.
Yeah, just name every single Harry Potter.
Okay, I saw a really funny thing, a meme the other day. It says it's all the Harry Potter books, but as if they were about Ron, and they're all just really degrading book names.
Oh my
god! Like
gosh.
book 7 is called like Ron Weasley Escapes the Friend Zone.
The thing is, Ron Weasley is the more relatable character.
He's
when
not.
he's like a weirdly talented Harry, you need also a character that struggles, and that way you can put yourself somewhere between the two of them. The thing I was going to say before was. Also, I love that super chat. That was really fun.
More like that, ladies and gentlemen.
I think it's fun to have these like interactive conversations. Like, what do you guys want to know from me? But the thing about this is, I wouldn't want one thing that I love to be just immediately updated with the same character names or else. But I think some of the things that I love about, especially like classic literature, maybe classic children's literature, are the values that I would love to see presented in the real world. So like another book called Pollyanna, and again, this is a children's book, but the idea is that it's this young girl, and it coins the term someone can be Pollyanna-ish, meaning that they're like always too optimistic. I don't know how often you guys hear this term.
So there's say it again.
Pollyanna. You might call someone a Pollyanna or say they're Pollyanna-ish.
So Pollyanna-ish. Are there Pollyanna-ish polyamorous people?
I don't know.
I bet you
That has nothing to do with polyamory, but this idea of like you have this sort of useful perseverance, and she's like a young girl who's been through hard times, and she goes to live with like some maiden aunt or whatever. But part of it is this idea of like falling back on optimism and perseverance. Like, I think those values would be cool to see more of in modern culture. I think so much about updating something for modern culture ends up being about how can we breed or read victimhood into these scenarios. And I would rather see aspirational content, which I tend to feel I see more, especially in older literature.
So yeah, there's very little in the way. I feel like much less of society is aspirational these days.
So what you're saying, I guess you're saying like you want one-for-one adaptation, but you'd like the archetype and the thematic to be.
Yeah, I wish we could maybe, like, if I could read something and be like, I think I really like this because it had me feel like this, and I think it portrayed these values or this type of culture. I want those things, but do not take the characters I love, do not take the settings I love, and essentially, I don't know if I can say this on here, bastardize them and make them these terrible, imperfect ripoffs that don't ultimately serve or convey the same meaning and message.
Brad, shut it down. She said bastardized.
Can I say that? I feel like that's
You
a
can
real
say
term.
that.
Is that a curse word? I can never remember.
There's one other thing I want to address about James Bond that I find very interesting that I feel like they have a problem with these days is how much does globalist Hollywood actually believe in characters that carry a certain sense of patriotism? Maybe because it's not American patriotism, it's okay. But it feels like much of the world these days wants you to believe in kind of a one world, we're all the same.
And I think
aren't a thing.
I think that's been going on for a long time.
Yes.
I mean, look at Imagine by John Lennon, where he says, "Imagine a world with no borders and no religion too." I mean,
I heard Gal Gadot sing it, and I loved it. It was great.
but it was there for her
Swooned.
to sing way before. I think patriotism is one of the issues. I think sort of morality generally, having people who sacrifice for their morals, or who say like ultimately my life after Earth is, and again, like I'm coming from a Christian perspective here, my life after Earth is meaningful, and like the impact of eternity is forever, and so therefore the actions that I have right now, I have to govern it with my eye set higher than that. And I think even if you don't want to read into it from a religious perspective, again, we go back to the idea of like aspirational morals, and that there are some things that are worth not just indulging in in momentary culture. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's funny because not just that, like I feel like there's been a steady push away from the idea of patriotism as far as you should be proud of your country, where you're from, but also similar to what you said about coming from a Christian perspective is like there's been an increased attempt in the last several decades to give a more atheistic approach to these industries. There's God is very rarely used in positive tone.
Oh yeah.
No, and the religious characters always have something wrong with them. Either they're super weird sheltered homeschoolers who eventually go wild or whatever else, or they're the evil people. Like there are very rarely depictions of just kind of an average Christian who's not perfect but also does have some kind of faith. And I think that's why what I was going to say before is I think that's why sometimes people seek out therapists, because they are looking for some way of saying like, did this person wrong me? Did I wrong them? They have no way to experience and think about their values outside of talking to a therapist, because they don't attend religious church services. And I will say, like, if you're not religious, this could also be achieved maybe through listening through a lot of like philosophy podcasts, or like some way to reconcile like, why does something feel wrong or why does something feel right, and where do I set my boundaries? And so they turn to a therapist because it comes out in a sense of anxiety because they have no way of governing the world. I think these ideas, these philosophies, these religious things ultimately make us better people because they make our minds think about things more than just the moment. They make us think about beyond.
I watched a movie this year that I really liked called The Hill. It's about this guy who he was disabled and he went on to pitch in the minor leagues, and he comes from his father's a pastor. And it's really interesting. It was really, really good. And it actually did show religion in, it had its moments, but it took place in the 50s. I might have been the 60s. So it was like a long time ago, but it wasn't inherently overly harsh to Catholicism, right?
Right.
But it was also an independent film. It wasn't like it was made by a big studio. It was made by a company called Briarcliff, which is not a big budget studio.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, how many people, you used to get these numbers, right? Like, I don't know them, but 60 million people tuned in for the first night of, season 5 of Game of Thrones or whatever it is. And that was on probably a Saturday or a Sunday. Everyone made a point to be there to see this thing. Great. You love entertainment, but how many people make a point to spend time every week thinking about the kind of person they want to be, or how they're like, what's going to happen to their soul, or what their values are, or what philosophical perspective they're going to approach the world with. And I think the thing is, if you can make time to show up for a movie premiere, if you can make time to see the first episode of a series, you should actually want to carve out church services are like an hour or two, or whatever you're into, to think about how am I reconciling my emotional state and my values to the world around me, and what am I going to try to pursue and carry forward. I think so much of people avoiding, religion or philosophy is because it asks you to strive better than you are. It asks you to reach higher, and people don't want to be pushed out of their comfort zones. They want to live in these sort of base instincts and emotions. And that's why we have to remake all of these classics to be like not about aspirational values or aspirational stories. We have to make it to be like, well, you're justified for doing this thing because you were oppressed, or here is why you are allowed to not be the best character, or why we don't want to see this person succeed, we want to see this person succeed, rather than like moving forward with an actual philosophy on life. It's about kind of wrecking things in the past to make yourself feel better in the moment.
The Bond movies, what's funny about that is for the Bond movies, I feel like their change is necessary. Like they mentioned, the villains have changed. The archetypes stay the same, but they come about current day. Like, okay, so when he talks about in GoldenEye, that's Trevelyan and the dude who's like the KGB, he was like an ex-KGB colonel, right? That's indicative of the Cold War and what happened at the time period. When you update it and you get Lashif and he's funding terrorism in the Middle East and stuff like that, or the Horn of Africa, that's very relevant to what was going on in 2006. I don't know how they're going to do that in a way that's not going to piss someone off for a movie in
QAnon, whatever, yeah.
That's honestly, that's sadly but probably pretty close to true. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to watch them try, but I don't have the utmost faith in it because I don't think they really have any faith in keeping a classic story that's pro masculinity, and really the archetype is like the male. That's like the male power fantasy, right? Women want to be with him, guys want to be him. That's the way it is. They're not interested in keeping that the same because Hollywood has worked very hard over the last couple of decades to change that aspect of masculinity. So we'll see where it goes. All right, let us go to Super Chats.
Let's do it. Okay. Is it Quiet Blackbird or Quite Blackpilled? I can't read anything.
It's Quite Blackpilled.
It says, "Sup, every woman." I guess that's directed to me. Hello, thank you.
I think that's actually for me.
Really? Why?
Yeah, that was the meme. Like, I am every woman.
You are every. That's so true. I can't even believe I missed that. Got a GOTY Dane.
Game of the year.
Okay, one that's not Final Fantasy.
So, I mean, Final Fantasy was the biggest disappointment of this year, and I gotta say, this year has been like one of the biggest disappointing years in gaming for me. It's a bunch of big titles, and with everyone I've been like,
none of them have really spoke to.
I'll say that Street Fighter 6 for multiplayer, and for single player, there was this indie game that came out that was really good. It's called Sea of Stars.
City of Stars?
Sea of Stars. Okay.
How do you find your video games? Do you like have a blog you follow, or you just kind of know enough at this point to kind of know what to look for?
Usually, I honestly, I'm at the point where it's word of mouth and just playing the same things.
Nice.
Yep.
Hi.
There's a $20 one here from Darth Doza. Says, HCB, moons ago you recommended 2 books. I Miss You When I Blink and The Female Brain. Just finished and they were excellent. Greatly appreciated. Any other recommendations? Your inputs on topics are incredible.
Oh, thanks. That's a really nice comment. Thank you so much. And I'm flattered you read the books. It's really easy to hand out book recommendations. It's much harder to carve out the time to then read said book recommendations. The same author of I Miss You When I Blink, Laura Mary Philpott, has another book called...
Don't look at me. I don't know.
I'll have to Google it in a second, but it's called something Bomb Shelter, and it's again she's an essayist, so it's stuff like that. If you liked her writing, maybe check out her second book. Female Brain has a counterpart too called The Male Brain, written by the same author, so you could check those out if you're in this realm. And then if you...
It's just the word boobs written on 100 pages.
That's a very big compliment, because like I get like when I give like movie and television recommendations and people check it out, I'm like, yes!
Yeah,
like a book recommendation.
I'm so honored. Now I feel like I have to come up with something good. And the thing is, those are very different books. One is a research-based, like here's how the female brain works, and one is someone talking about their life. Maybe they were good companion reads. I don't know. That's why I'd say the author's other book, or Male Brain. And then if you wanted like another book, one of the books that I have read and loved was A Gentleman in Moscow, and I thought it was just phenomenally written. And I know I mentioned that on my book list.
So recently, I recommended people this movie called Hypnotic, starring Ben Affleck. And it was really funny because I got like one person who's like, wow, Brett, he's like, I checked it out on your recommendation. It wasn't even like a recommendation. I just posted on Twitter/X/Twix, whatever. It's like, I thought it was good. It was weird that
I love Twix. By the way.
It got like no promotion, whatever. I thought the movie was fine. And so he's like, yeah, I really liked it. And I'm like, yes. And then the next person's like, I watched it. It was awful. You're the worst. And I'm like, damn.
But that's why there's a lot of movies and lots of books, you know? I'm not going to hit a 10 out of 10 every time. And also, it's that kind of thing, I think I see this on Reels where people be like, if you like this song, you might also like these songs. Like, sometimes it's harder to say exactly where it's going to go.
Let's do 2 more.
Okay.
No,
go for it.
Side note. Like, there's a game that I'm a fan of. It's kind of niche, but it's also like really popular. And I've always had the experience where like if people like that game, the immediate response is like, "I love you," as a person, because it's just such a trip.
Yeah, people know.
Mm-hmm.
Shane H. Wilder says a novel is anything over 40K. Novella is 10,000 to 40,000. Short story is 1,000 to 10,000, and flash fiction is anything 500 words or less. Yes, thank you. Wow. I never remember the exact numbers, but there are categories for these things.
Do one more.
Okay. Pat the plumber says, who the F is Blueface? We're all wondering. And that's the thing. Like, when you do these things, like have strippers and propose to your girlfriend at the thing, like maybe he knows a lot of people are into football right now, Taylor Swift effect. And so he's trying to also capitalize on that because he's not that big of an artist, but now Fox News is writing about him.
Oh yeah, I see a lot with Blueface, but it's never about music. It's always about his personal life. So
maybe he's just trying to be a vlog star. Who knows?
All right, guys, let's get. We got one more to talk about, and this one's kind of scary, right? So we've talked about Eugenia Cooney several times on this podcast, usually in relation to how people respond to her material. Now, there has been a recent rash of 911 calls that have been placed to the police department near her house because her fans are very, very worried about her appearance. I am going to show you guys an image. So it's not graphic. It's shocking, right? Mm-hmm. So just be warned. So this is a scary thing to think about in a day and age now where this is the discussion we have every time. Like, what is freedom in a case like this, right? Is a person like this, is it their right to do this to themselves without somebody stepping in? And this question gets brought up a lot because it came up when we talked about Free Britney, right? Like, does a person have a right to do this to themselves without somebody stepping in?
Yeah, so I think with this one, it's kind of twofold. Theoretically, people who have severe eating disorders can get committed and have to go.
And this has happened to her before.
The other thing is, like, I don't know, her body is probably so severely damaged that you're probably not going to see the kind of, like, she can't just go away for 2 weeks and like eat a bunch of cake and it'll be fine. I will say this idea, like, oh, crazy, they're so concerned they're calling 911. This is exactly what happened with Ruby Frankie, that mommy vlogger out of Utah, like, who is in jail right now because people were concerned about her children, and because one of her children, they had a history of like CPS people calling because they were vloggers, and this happens to other family vloggers as far as I know, probably illegitimate, but people decide they think something's wrong. With Ruby's kids, she was known for like these severe and weird forms of punishment. Like, one kid had to sleep on a beanbag instead of his bed for 9 months or something because he did something she didn't like, or like her kids, she would like send them to school without lunches as a punishment. And Ruby Frankie had a kid who like went and knocked on a neighbor's window and had like lacerations on their arms and was like, I'm really thirsty, I'm really hungry, can you help me? And like, it's been a big deal, right? So
her and her business partner are both in jail right now.
Right.
Good.
And
Jeez.
it's crazy. And I think it's not a question of like, what I don't know what her name is. Eugenia Cooney is allowed to do whatever she wants, but that doesn't mean everyone gets to just be like, she's just expressing herself, right?
Exactly.
Like, there are reasons that we have commitment law, or like mental health commitment laws, and like ways people can intervene.
And people are looking to make sure that she's not being forced to make content.
The thing is, people are checking in on her, and therefore she's getting more views, and therefore she's making more money off of this. So engaging with her at all is actually probably encouraging her to continue. And I hate to put it that bluntly, but like, if you really cared about this person, you should stop watching her content. You think you're watching for her welfare, and maybe you are, and I appreciate the empathy there, but like, watching these videos funds the behavior. There's a financial reward to what she's doing to herself. And so if you actually thought this was not worth watching, you just have to stop watching. The view count has to crash.
The sergeant who commented on this, who said that he's known her for more than a decade, that's not uncommon for like big enough e-celebrities, like especially like
like where's she based?
Like I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, the thing is, he might know her for decades because she lives in a small town and everyone knows her.
But also like certain
look.
YouTuber, like if you're like a live streamer and like you've been swatted, a lot of them, they develop relationships with their local law enforcement to like prevent something bad from happening. If something is, but is that because of this, or is this because of welfare check calls that have come to the home before in the past, which is another very reasonable thing to see. If somebody sees somebody who looks like this, you would wonder if they were being mistreated at home. I mean, she wasn't always an adult, right? So, and he says that he has like a special code with the sergeant. If something's not right, she puts a specific thing in the video to say that it's not right, so then he'll know, which makes it seem like the sergeant would then watch the content on a regular basis to check on her.
Sorry, I'm not following this.
So she says that he has a good relationship with Miss Cooney, and says they even have a special code. She puts a certain object in her videos so he knows that everything is all right. So there's something that shows up in her videos that she doesn't say what it is that indicates that everything's okay and nothing is wrong.
That sounds more like domestic violence to me. That's the weirder thing. Because also, like, of course, the person who's starving themselves is like, no, don't worry, everything's fine. It's not like she's gonna be like, no, it turns out I'm really hungry.
If the object,
that sounds more like, are you being forced? Is there a partner?
Well, that's what that's what they're talking about. She was like, are you being forced to make the content? But the scary thing is like once you get to that size, it's like we talked about with Avocado or any of these YouTubers who end up making content that can be detrimental to your health. Like it's like audience capture, right? You kind of get addicted to making that content.
My thing, it's not just like making the content, it's being deprived of food, right? Like it's not, if she were a normal weight, people might still watch her content. There's no reason to think that she couldn't be successful at what she's doing. But right now she's got a specific click factor because people are so kind of weirded out by the way she looks.
The sergeant says if that makes her comfortable. He says that she's of sound mind and always has a bubbly personality when he chats with her. Well, I guess, is that like the medical opinion? She's been 5150 before, and said that when that happened, she felt betrayed and basically put upon by her family and friends, which is very common of somebody who is like, for many people, like in my case, like not necessarily for me specifically, but plenty of people who go through addiction, right? If they're not ready to get help when your family and friends come to you with legitimate concern and they're worried about you, if you're not ready to get help, you don't feel grateful for what's for what they're doing. You feel like they're ganging up on you. And that's the scary thing, right? Is I feel as if this young woman is going to be walked into her grave. She's in her early 20s, I believe. So it's scary because you see the way that social media clout can influence a person to not change. And I don't know if, I don't know who's supposed to get involved if you're an adult, right? Like, it's not like, this isn't a case of where parents are keeping that, like we were talking about earlier with Ruby Frank. This isn't the case of somebody's parents keeping them from eating or parents punishing them or making them
Well, that's why the object
content.
thing is so weird to me. Like, that would make it seem like perhaps she's like got an abusive boyfriend who's like, oh, you're making all this money because you look so crazy, so I'm going to keep food away from you. And so she puts up the object so the sergeant knows that's not what's happening. Yeah. But, again, if it all comes down to whatever she's doing to make her content appealing is potentially, you think, as a viewer, driving her behavior that's self-destructive, you should stop watching her content. Yeah. You should unfollow her. You should unsubscribe. And it's not to cancel her, it's to not engage with something that like it's not
She's 29.
To direct
29.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought she was closer to 30. Yeah. It's not to direct any revenue towards something that you think is harming someone. It's the same reason people boycott family channels. Like the family vloggers incorporate their kids, but if you thought that was wrong, that their kids are being exploited in any way, you should stop consuming their content.
I feel like
oh, go ahead.
With the whole I'll have an item in my video, at the bare minimum, what it means is like at the past something has happened.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of the same. I guess it's the same thing. The argument they make when they say like, oh, look, if you don't want women to make OnlyFans content, then stop consuming the content, and the market for it dries up, right? Like if there's nobody buying the content, then like, oh, look, it's good to hold everyone. You can have complaints about the women doing it, but you can put yourself first. You can put your own behavior for something like that.
Right,
first.
and if you're a viewer and you're like, well, I'm just checking to see if she's okay. Like it doesn't. YouTube pays her regardless if you're hate watching her, you love watch her, you're concerned watching her. Like it doesn't matter. That engagement is still there no matter what your motivation is. And so if you think that potentially she's harming herself to make her body look, more dramatic for potentially converting, people seeing her thumbnails into views, then you should stop being a viewer.
Yeah. It's scary. Like, how do you feel about it for like people in the chat were saying like maybe we shouldn't cover her. Do you feel like that's a fair criticism?
I go back and forth on it. I mean, it's happening no matter what. So as like a news side, not that you're exactly news, but like as a commentary content,
That's okay. I take insult when people call us journalists.
I just meant like, it's not like you're like, and I'm live reporting from outside Eugenia's house. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like this is like you're calling her neighbors to get comments, stuff like that. But in some ways, maybe you shouldn't comment on her because ultimately then people are exposed to her and then potentially go watch her stuff to be like, who is this girl? And that's driving more viewership to her. On the other hand, it is something that's happening, and in some ways it's worth discussing because we get to talk about the conversations over, like, as a viewer, what kind of engagement do you give content that could be potentially harmful?
They say that same thing to us when we cover Disney, when we cover any of these topics. They're like, look, if you don't like their content, then don't cover it. I'm like, look, I take a neutral approach as often as possible to any of this stuff.
He's going to talk about the USA Network for 2 hours every day.
If you played her, we could do that. A USA Network podcast would be great.
I could do that.
But if you played her video on this show, I would be opposed to it because, like, she is getting that view count. Like, there's no reason to do that. And it's the same thing. Like, yeah, there's a morbid fascination with what's going on, but remember that if you engage with any of her content and you think, and I'm not saying this is how it works, but you think that we're potentially driving whatever decision she's making because ultimately her objective is to get the clicks and views, which is true of anyone who has a, you know, social media based platform, then you are contributing even if you think you're doing it out of concern.
There's a $20 super chat here from Beanbag Actual with no message, which is very kind of you. I'm going to heart that one. I forgot you can heart super chats now.
You're so engaging.
Look, this is one that goes back and forth on it, right? Because a lot of people do say that, like if you cover these topics about these celebrities that you don't like, you're giving them attention. I'm like, look, I don't love or hate any of these people. I just talk about it.
I want to stress that I am talking more specifically about the way engagement works online. Like, true, you're giving celebrities attention by talking about it on this podcast. On the other hand, if I tell you, oh, hey, there's this YouTube girl and she's doing weird stuff, you might then look her up and watch her videos. And that is a more intense conversion into engagement. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, me just saying someone's name that everyone knows doesn't necessarily drive people to the platform. Whereas, like, if you're covering something that then you know people are going to try and engage with her stuff, it's a little bit different. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I have no answer on it. I'm just saying if you are someone who is like telling yourself, oh, I'm watching her stuff out of concern, maybe if you really are concerned, stop watching it.
I don't hold like anything that I do in this like high regard that I kind of laugh at the idea of like changing the world or like the people who talk about fighting a culture war, right? I guess I get it. But at the end of the day, I just want to talk about stuff that I find interesting, and whatever people take from that is what they take from that, because I can't control what that is. Dane. See, I do like parties. Crisis parties.
I don't think this counts, my friend.
Oh, it counts. See, maybe that's what
he only likes parties that he's forced us into at a deafening volume.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Like I don't take like a strong stance on a lot of this stuff because it's part of the job to talk about it. But the idea that I'm not going to cover something because somebody says that it contributes to it. Also, in this realm, at least when it comes to movies and stuff like that, you can. Careful. In this realm, like when it comes to movies, you can influence Disney's box office by having a fair negative review about a movie way more than just not talking about it. For us, most of the time. So, all right, let's go to. I
have no idea how to even begin to have an opinion about this.
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah, that's truly the only thing that came to mind during the whole segment is that I feel this feels sort of equivalent to like the 600-pound life people.
Yeah. Because
it's like at some point you were 300 pounds and then 400 pounds and then 500 pounds and then 600. It's like, when does I don't know.
And pre-internet, TLC would have made a video about this girl being like the world's skinniest, whatever. Like it would have been something that like you treated sort of like a modern day sideshow.
Well, so she's like 70 pounds or something, right? So it's like when she was like 90, 80, like my thing is like when do people start noticing, and when is it like, okay, well, this isn't average, you know what I mean? Like, not that you have to be, but it's like, what's going on? Like what because it's one thing being obese, and then it's one thing being like, this is like record setting.
Society's always going to be fascinated by those that kind of exist on the outskirts of what's acceptable in society. Mm-hmm. The only difference would have been, I suppose, that back then TLC would have made all the money off of my 600-pound life.
And people get mad about that. Yeah. People will say it's exploitative. I mean, it's similar criticisms.
And I guess they both are.
Similar criticisms of Netflix's Love on the Spectrum and Down for Love, which are daily.
Dude, yeah. For me, those are so super intense. And me and my wife had different opinions. Because my wife is like, oh, you know, there's everything of love, and I'm like, I have the same opinion, but it's just weird that we're like, oh look, they're gonna do it. They're gonna love.
Someone's gonna make money off of them.
Yeah. This is so weird. Look at them loving, like camera point, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, let's go to super chats.
Okay. Pat the plumber said, I could do better than Noodles and Company from the commissary. Which is maybe true. I don't know. I want to give Noodles and Company a second chance, but I just don't know if it's worth it, you know?
I'm gonna go this week.
Can we have? We should have an episode that's just food reviews.
I would love that. I feel like that'd be so fun.
Yeah.
I want to get. Well, here's the thing. I wanted to get. Speaking of stuff like that, have I sent you the videos of Gal vs. Food, the girl who can eat the entire Big Mac or the entire Big Mac in one bite? Anyways, I wanted to have her on the show.
She a snake? She unhinges her jaw?
She's basically, yeah. She's gorgeous, and she's like
really.
And I feel like it's like, and I actually make the joke. I'm like, it's kind of toxic content because she's super skinny. Like she's very much in good shape and beautiful, and all her content
This is
mukbang.
Brett's future wife, everybody.
And here's the thing.
Wife. Yeah, I also want her to come on the show.
Yes.
Invite her. When is she coming on the show, Brett?
And the thing
what
like,
day? What
if
day is she coming on the show?
You can't have her on and not have her eat food.
Oh, so you mean you'd have to take her to dinner when she was here? Is that what you're saying?
Oh.
You guys would need to go.
In the chat, one shot says review the McRib. Review the McRib next. Well, yes, if
Brett's future wife comes on the show, we'll review the McRib. That's what he's saying.
Now we need to have,
because she's a classy lady. We want to make sure she's comfortable.
we need to have Noodles and Company, and then we need to have IHOP and Waffle House at the same time, so we can dispel the myth that Waffle House is a fine establishment.
Waffle House is a good time, but I will not say it's a high quality
I
time.
have nothing wrong with Waffle House.
There's so much wrong.
But then again, I don't even get waffles.
There's constantly evidence being uploaded to the internet about something being wrong with Waffle House.
I never get waffles from Waffle House anyways. I always get the burger.
Well, look, we could do a burger review, including the IHOP burger, the Waffle House burger. Like, there are all kinds of...
No, we'll have pancakes.
Foods, like
Guys.
companies that advertise breakfast foods, but you order lunch
It's very
food.
hard to get women to want to eat on camera anyways.
For sure. I wouldn't want to do it.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
As a woman, I wouldn't have that issue, honestly.
And he's every woman. Okay. Let's see. What is his name? That crisis.
Oh, we already did that.
Oh, yeah, that's a $20 one. Sorry. The Hiroshima
Utaru.
Interesting. Transatlantic and affection, not an accent. I think it counts as an accent because it was something regional.
What makes it an affectation?
An affectation is like people are, and this is not a doctor's opinion, I'm just saying, an affectation is like something people are putting on, and it's something like among a community, sort of more like vocal fry that got popularized with the Kardashians, or the Valley Girl voice.
Okay, so it's not an actual accent.
It's a behavior, speech, or writing that is artificial and designed to impress.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I don't know if it's always impressed, but it's
go watch
to convey
Mad Men.
something. I think the transatlantic accent actually counts as an accent because it was regional. It had to do with how people move through countries, and it wasn't ever there's more to it than just an affectation, in my opinion. That Crisis-tastic says
Nope, we did that one. Right?
No, I didn't.
Oh, no, we got another one. Okay, I missed
Brett,
it. Yep.
if you want to read super chats, you
Go
do
for
it.
Go for it.
The Rock used to call people Rudy Poo candy asses. Would that be allowed today? By the way, you smell the Rock is cooking. What does that mean?
He did call. Well, that was his catchphrase.
Was he a chef?
Do you smell the Rock is cooking?
What a weird string of words to put together.
He did in fact call people that. He also has these
the eyebrow.
He did some very very offensive imitations of people of other parts of the world. The Rock was a very very edgy and funny guy at the time. He also had him and Chris Jericho had very many words to call Stephanie McMahon an unfaithful and less than fine woman. Those were good times.
And then he did steroids and grew a heart of gold.
Oh, there's this great video where basically it says like only The Rock could make The Rock look like a pussy because he's like bigger now than he ever was when he was a wrestler.
Yeah, he's ginormous now.
Yeah. Bang Bang Lulu says geopolitical nipple. It's one word.
Thank you. I don't know what that means, but thank you.
You're having a good time, Philip W says, love the show, guys. It helps me keep awake when I'm feeding my 6-month-old Evelyn, great name, at 3:30 a.m. here in Perth, Western Australia. Well, Western Australia is so cool. I feel like Sydney gets all the hype, but I think Perth is probably cool too.
And he probably He's got the greatest accent, according to the internet now.
Yeah, look at him go. Expect him to have many children. No Diggity 24/7 says, representing Eden Prairie, Minnesota, add Mary, and this would be the perfect team. So good. And there's some sort of emoji face.
Yes, Eden Prairie. We played.
Where are you going to retire? You have some town in Minnesota you're retiring
Medford,
to.
Minnesota.
Medford. I'm so excited for this.
I decided that years and years ago.
Wow.
Just far enough. And by the time that happens,
I love this explanation. No, explain why.
By the time that this happens, society could be vastly different. But far enough outside the city that it doesn't feel like you're anywhere in all of the mishkas, but also close enough that I could go every day if I wanted to. Has a small town feel, but it could be very different by the time.
Chat, if you guys know any ladies that are single and don't like parties and have ties to Medford, Minnesota, I feel like that would be really nice to just like slide those ladies into Brett's DMs or openly tag them on Twitter. That would be funnier to me, because then when you and your wife retire, you guys can go to her hometown, Medford, Minnesota. It'll be great. I'm so excited.
But
for you.
I have a retirement plan for everyone.
Well, did you write Medford into Brett's, or you have to reconsider?
No, we're all gonna live in a commune where we all make a separate food item, and at night we congregate and we eat it together, and then we go our separate ways and talk shit behind each other's back, guys.
That does sound fun.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
Sleazy Whiskers in the chat says we were going to go to Minnesota, but the crime problem. Medford is outside of the city. Again, I don't know if it's still like this. This idea arose to me a long time ago. Many
I love
years
that you
ago.
have a life plan, and I can't wait to meet the lady who fits into this. Perhaps this, Big Mac eating one bite girl.
Perhaps.
Olivia Claire says, "Hi, Hannah Claire. Lovely to see you on PCC. Hello. Hi, Dane. Based Halloween take.
Thank you.
Hi, Brett. All I have to say to you is justice for Mocha.
There will be no justice for your derpy cat, Olivia.
Jesus.
She has an extremely derpy cat that will never end up on PCC Cute of the Day again. She has another cat named Chloe. Chloe's fine. Chloe's fine. Mocha, derpy. No.
Have you met Mocha in person?
I have not met Mocha in person, but I have gotten into many battles on the Discord with people over the cat, and I will not relent my position. It's derpy, it's not cute, and will be my opinion forever.
This is someone's cat, Brett.
Olivia knows that, and she's just accepted that.
Olivia's not going to retire to Medford with Brett. I can tell you that.
Really?
Rough.
Not with that cat.
Not with that cat.
Oh no, not with that cat.
Kanye Diggit says, Kanye Diggit, yes, you can.
Love that pun.
There you go.
And then Bang Bang Lulu says, here, but don't spend this all in one place.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll try not to.
Hiroshima Utaru, I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce anything. Trump, Brett is the best at all parties, the greatest. I realized halfway through I needed that accent.
He would never say
somebody
that.
also made a point earlier that they were bringing up because I'm very open about being in recovery and maybe that plays a role into it. No, if anything, I went to parties less when I was in the worst of my drugs exacerbated my most isolationist tendencies. You think I'm antisocial now? You should
Yes.
it was 100 times worse before.
Wow.
No, it was actually worse that being sober actually means that you go out and do things with people once in a while. Right now it's a little bit different because I work a lot. So
that's your excuse,
that's
man.
my
I don't know what to
excuse.
tell you.
She's saying this, guys, because one time I was walking into work and she was walking into work and she goes, "We're going hiking this weekend. Do you want to come?" And I go, "No."
It's not just one time. I have repeatedly invited Brett, "Hey, we're all going to go to dinner." And he'll be like, I don't know.
Look,
I invited him for my birthday and he was like, no.
Yeah, that's the
"Oh."
thing. At a certain point, you're like, do you?
It happened.
Yeah, I remember
that did
that.
not
The
happen.
hibachi
It
one,
happened.
right?
Mary shamed you.
Did
And then you were like, well, if you're shaming me.
I end up going?
No. Wouldn't you know?
Brett, I'm going to tell you right now, I messed up the Superchats somehow. I don't know what happened, but
Okay.
I cannot continue on in this way.
That's okay.
So, my bad, team.
We'll have Chris fix it after the fact. Okay, so Derp Space 9, excuse me, says, Hannah, show ring or be silent. Stop pressuring a guy into a terrible idea, into a terrible idea marriage because you like the idea of Brett suffering.
Guys, if you like a girl that can name 10 books, we've really unearthed unearth some new ground here.
And I will say, I
Hannah
agree.
Claire Brimlow.
I'm not going to hand out marriage advice, but you don't understand. My advice to Brett is go out and meet someone. I am also in a position to say that's a way that you find someone to date, you know? Witness right here. We have a married man amongst us who was not, he was, I think, single, or he had a girlfriend when I first started working here. He met a lady, he married her. My advice to Brett is not specifically about how he should manage his marriage, just that he should try and get married. And I think I can say that because I'm right in the same boat.
Lucky guys, I look young for my age. I got plenty of time. I got plenty of time. Here we go. Let's continue, shall we? So, Disco Jensen says, "Why haven't you reviewed classics worth watching?" Look, what do you mean by that? Like, do you mean like movie classics worth watching? Because I do go back and forth in that sometimes. Like the other weekend, I watched the movie 13 Hours starring John Krasinski. It's about Benghazi. It's about the military contractors that were in Benghazi, and it was really, really, really good. Oddly apolitical, given the subject matter. And I was like, I'd love to sit around and talk about this, but does it really fit like with our work, right? Like I'll review new movies sometimes, like if it's just me, like if they're on Netflix or if nobody else wants to see it. But with old movies, it's a little bit different.
The only person that has attempted and succeeded at making art in the 21st century, his name is Vince Gilligan, and yep.
Okay.
Also part of the X-Files.
That is it. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Also, now in the chat, they're saying you keep telling yourself that, Brett, about my comment about having time. So thank you guys. Whoa. Did we get a third crisis party? Oh no, I don't think we did. I think you they get a free one because of what you did.
I don't know what I did. I touched the mouse pad. I'm gonna get fired after this. I really messed up the shoot.
You guys just got a free crisis party because Hannah Claire screwed up the crisis meeting.
How did I screw? I was like touching it to switch Superchats and then it all went away. I don't know.
Free third crisis party for you guys. I'll expect that paid back later in full with interest.
I don't do Brett once. He's not married. Don't listen to him.
Jesus.
You're not married. You can't make that suggestion.
Oh, I didn't say I was married. I just said you're not married, so we shouldn't listen to you.
Oh gosh.
No, I'm
All
just kidding.
right.
You guys can listen to Brett if you want to. It has nothing to do with marriage.
200 Watt Studio says the only thing I don't like about the ending of the Gilmore Girls revival was the daughter made the same mistake as her mom. Is that true?
Yeah.
What was the mistake?
Well, in
Single
this
mom?
case, she got married without being pregnant. To be fair, she's like 30 when it happens, and her mom is 16, which is kind of an interesting crisis because it's like, or a contrast because like when you're, you don't want your teenage daughter to get pregnant. On the other hand, do you want your 30-year-old daughter to get pregnant and not be married? I mean, I think there are a lot of opportunities to read an interesting traditionalist critique of the modern day or of the Gilmore Girls revival. But ultimately, like I said, they both seem like unhappy people. I mean, even the mom who like very famously has this like, for the first couple seasons, like, should she marry the guy who owns the diner in town? And eventually they do get together. Even in the revival, they're not married and they're not really sure what's happening in their relationship. There's a whole thing where even though they're not married and she's obviously like in her 40s, maybe late 40s, they're like, should we have children? You want to be like, you guys have terrible communication skills. You guys should have thought about this in season 1.
Andrina says the crisis count is missing. That's because of what Hannah Claire did, ladies
But I
and
don't
gentlemen.
know what I
Jesus.
did.
are
I also
60
asked
We
Brett.
are $70 from the next. I'm just letting
I
you know.
also
They wanna
asked,
know
I was
where
like,
it
hey,
is.
do you want Dane to read Super Chats today? He's like, no, sounds good, Bromo. You sit in that chair and touch
I've
the
offered
laptop.
to read Super Chats, and Brett's like, no.
Because I'm so good at it, I mess up the
I don't
crisis
know,
meter.
but he's like particularly doesn't want me to do it.
Oh, interesting.
He doesn't believe I can read, which I think is racist.
But maybe now that I have actually somehow messed up our back end, I get out of this job.
I'll have
200
everyone know I read a definition earlier.
200 Watt Studio says the only thing I don't like about
That's really trying to keep us on track.
Says Craig Bond films had no purpose. He never became Bond. Series spun its wheels and suddenly they treated him like he was worn out and needed to retire. Yeah, like the end of Casino Royale is supposed to be like him becoming James Bond, but it got kind of sidetracked by the Vesper Lind love story. And as great as that was and as refreshing as that was at the time, looking back on it, selfishly, I wish they had just never gone that route for the emotional resonance and just tried to keep the film more timeless, I guess, without that storyline. All right, Pat the Plumber says the Bible, HCB.
But Brett, love is timeless. This is why you should get married.
Well,
Is what we're saying.
That's true. Brett, the thing is, when you are an adult, I think it's important to make
This is
commitments
turning into
and-
bullying. ladies
is.
and
You
gentlemen.
asked both of us to be here. You knew what would happen.
Oh man.
Are we done? Can I keep going?
Look, we can
No,
talk about
Brett,
this,
because
but
marriage is forever.
Pat
I'm
the
making
plumber
a
says-
holy vow.
I don't want you to be one of these guys that like looks back on your life and is like, man, I always thought I'd have children, but it turns out if I just never tried to meet anyone, you don't have them. Like, I want you to live a happy and fulfilled life, and you work really hard. You deserve a nice
Pat
lady.
the plumber says the Bible, Hannah Claire Brimlow, the only book that matters.
But I was asked to name 10, so if I only named one, I would have failed at that challenge.
That is true.
Unless I did books of the Bible, maybe? I don't know.
Gordon Shumway says, I would like to see a Buck Rogers reboot and redo Starship Troopers, this time actually follow the book. The movie was nothing like the book. Yeah, I've been told that.
This is the thing. Books are not written, only bad books are written to become movies directly. Good books are written to be books. So you're obviously going to lose things. You should have people who write really good movie scripts, and you can have people who write really good books, but you should not expect them to just switch back and forth between the two.
And honestly, you'll never find a book on marriage because it's quite a journey that you go on.
And the thing is, you have to start the journey. You know, you have to go out there and start seeing who's going to be in your band, who's going to get on the ship and sail the ocean with you. And that involves prioritizing your personal life on some capacity. I'm not saying you have to be obsessed, but I'm saying that perhaps you should attend a party or go on a hike or come to a group gathering at a restaurant.
Or practice parties at least, because as it's known, it's been established, you're not very good at them.
What part of this discussion makes you think I would ever want to go to a party with either of you?
Oh,
Because we're great at parties.
we're
I think
great
that's
at
also been
parties, and Dane
established.
is married, so therefore you have a male role model in the room.
Yash for $1.99 says, for the Hannah Claire Brimlow Americana Sweater Quilt Fund.
Thank you so much. I am actually looking for more of them. That's a big passion of mine, having knitted wear that is looks like the American flag on something.
Shane H. Wilder for $20 says, Brett, be social or you don't get to see the top secret PCC episode 500 project I've been working on. Okay, I'm lying. I've put too many hours into it not to share it. If I can be a meme lord, you have a social you can have a social life, then if I can be a meme lord with a social life, then so can you. Well, fine. Okay, we got another $20
So you
one
agree?
here.
You agree it's time to start looking for a wife?
That's Crisis.
We have it on record.
That's Crisis-tastic says, can Phil make a cover of Skater Boy, but have it Skater Girl, and then have Brett walk around with a boombox playing it until he finds his wife? Also, what game was Dane talking about?
I want an All That Remains Barbie Girl cover, and Phil, I think, looked like he was going to vomit when I suggested it, but maybe he would do it.
Xenogears is the game I was talking about. Sorry. The
$30 from the next Crisis party. Just letting everyone know.
See, isn't it more fun this way? We're all in suspense. You don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get back on track.
Kind of like finding love. You never know when love is
so
going to
you
find
put
you.
yourself in a
So
position.
you really got to put yourself into positions where you can meet the love of your life. That you're going to retire to Minnesota.
To be fair to Brett, he's worked
Go
here
on.
for a little while, and he's met all of us.
I've asked you guys
unless we have a
to
new
come
hire
in.
he's going to fall in love with, it seems like none of us are it. And so he has to go outside the four walls of this studio to meet someone. That's just basic math, Brett. I don't know what to tell you.
At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I asked these two to come on to give up 2 hours of their day, and they have decided to stay longer because they want to make fun of me. So
No, not
it's
make
on
fun of
them.
you.
I don't think it's make fun of you.
No,
I don't
no,
understand
no.
why you
From
think it's a joke that
Grego
you
with
could find
love.
love.
From Grego with love says, on the subject of James Bond, I wanted to bust the myth that he can be race swapped. He can't. Ian Fleming's James Bond is specifically white. I agree with you that that's what the literature says, but that to Hollywood, that means literally nothing. They can race swap anything if they want to.
And they will.
And they will.
Who do you guys think Brett's going to marry? I'm really curious what
That'll
the
be the poll tomorrow. You'll have to come
My
up with
theory-
Tiffany Gomez, Lauren Boebert.
The food eating chick.
Yeah, I think it's the McDonald's chick or whatever.
Look, I think we got to scratch Lauren Boebert off the table. She's got a lot going on. She is a beautiful lady, but
She's a beautiful lady.
I think you guys are in different places in your life, and you know, she's a grandmother now. You need to have some
She's
kids.
a grandmother.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you ready to be a step grandpa?
That's just a lot to take on.
Yes, I am. Cleggy says, sometimes I wonder how nobody knew Clark Kent was Superman. Then I see Brett on IRL with no hat or glasses, and I get it. Yes.
Yeah. But you know, Brett's true love would have recognized him no matter what.
The thing is, there's a video where they have Henry Cavill sit in front of right underneath a Superman sign, and nobody recognized him.
Really?
Yeah.
Must
Well, he
mean
wore
they
the glasses and the...
They retouch his face, apparently.
Nobody recognized him. Okay, Sparrow says, don't worry about reading this, but thanks for making my shelter visit easier to go through. Sorry about my old roommate spamming yours and Tim's chat. Your guys are my favorite groups to follow. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Are we there? The third one?
Almost. DD Megadoodoo97 says, sounds like things are getting serious between you and Colonel Kurtz, Brett. No.
Oh,
What's this?
interesting. Who is this?
Who is this?
Colonel Kurtz is another YouTuber who is in a very
Oh my God, they have things in common.
Is this a girl whose show you go on Fridays?
Yes.
Whoa.
Wait, I didn't realize that.
History.
She is in a relationship in a she's very happily in a long-term relationship.
Oh, okay.
Does she have a
squash
sister?
that.
Does she have a best friend?
Yes,
Does she know other
Sergeant
women?
Kurtz. It's her sister.
I'm sorry, if you get along with her, probably you would also get along with her sister. It's not a crazy question. This is how people we met all the time in the 80s.
Narcissistically, I love everyone just wanting to
My
talk
wife
about
has
me,
a
but,
sister.
You
That's all
obviously
I'm
hate it because
saying.
you're trying to rush us through this. It's very funny. Oh, yeah. Interesting. So you're saying Brett could go on a double date with you and...
Derp Space 9 says, Brett, if a person is unmarried by 40, there is only a 12% chance they will marry. If they are single by 45, it drops to 5%. Stay single, stay happy, he said.
No, Brett. That's bad advice. Although the statistics do bear out. I've read that before, too. You guys don't understand. Brett has the potential to be this just like very sweet hockey dad. And that's what we are all aiming for him to be the kind of dad who coaches Little League hockey and then does what his dad did or his grandpa, I can't remember
Little
who.
League hockey is not a thing. That's not a term.
Well, I'll only know when you have children.
White Black Pilled says, what's worse, Brett at parties or Dane at reading?
Brett at parties, 100%.
I mean, I don't know. They never let me read. So, like, who's to know?
Okay, by the way, if people were wondering, we are $12 from the next crisis party. Just saying.
If we get to a crisis party today, Brett will get married. No, I'm just kidding.
What?
200 Watt Studio says soon Brett will become Brettfalo Bill at this rate.
What if we...
What does that mean?
Like Buffalo Bill? Maybe he was
Oh,
famously
that's
single.
mean.
Okay, but the thing is, what if we suspended typical broadcasting one day and we turned this into a fun dating show? Like where you sit, you can't see the other people, and we ask questions, and then you go on a date with them at the end.
I would love
I'm telling you, this would be a fun episode. We've
we
got
do
enough
that?
chairs. I really like this idea. Everyone submit names on Twitter to me and Brett of ladies who would potentially be good.
We should do that for episode 500.
Yes! Sorry, that was way too loud.
We should do that. Wait. Caveat. We should do that for episode 500 for Brett and Hannah Claire.
Yeah, why are we
Yes.
talking about you?
We should have.
Because this isn't my show.
This
This is your show.
That is fair.
Okay.
So I love this idea. If you guys love it too, tweet at Brett and immediately also submit to all of us potential ladies who would be good blind dates. It's
No
like,
fats.
What's that game? Not mystery date. It's
Not a
what's
single
that thing?
fat.
What's that game? The dating game, right?
Grofty says Brett taking so much a boost. It's
What,
like
you
a
Canadian?
boost. It's
Nar.
a boost.
The thing is, if you believe people have potential, you should encourage them to reach it. And I think it would be a disservice as friends to Brett for Dane and I to sit here and be like, yeah, man,
I couldn't
just
do it.
never try and meet anyone.
I could never be that guy.
Be what guy?
The person that tells Brett that he doesn't have potential, because he does have
He
potential.
does have potential.
That's why I think he could go from a 2 to a 3 at parties, because as we know, he's famously bad at
He's
that.
bad at parties.
He's bad at parties.
He's really bad at parties. Anyways, I think the thing is, if
Are you
Brett's-
done?
No, I will never be done. When I'm invited to your wedding, which I hope I am at, you will know that I am done. But until then, I will maybe relent when you finally buy a ring and tell me your plan to propose. When there is an engagement ring on someone's picture, I will dial it back to 50%. But when you are married, I will officially stop.
Derp Space 9 says, Brett, just buy a woman a house and sign away half your earnings. You just had the marriage experience.
stop with that?
And you didn't even need to get dressed up.
Can we stop with that?
What was that? I don't get this.
Olivia Claire says, if Brett didn't hate Mocha,
So much
I'd
screaming
volunteer.
from Brett right now. Well, the thing is, Olivia, he does hate Mocha. So do you have a sister? Do you have a friend who doesn't have a derpy cat?
You'll have to do something about the cat, Olivia. I'm sorry.
So she's a contender. Interesting.
Bang Bang Lulu
Just get rid of the
says,
cat,
Brett,
girl.
try at least 3 wives before you are ready to commit.
Jesus.
Carnell says, just imagine Brett finding the lady of his dreams and prepared to get married, but not getting along with HCB. I'm kidding. So
On
yes,
episode 500.
Guys, I am telling you, wouldn't you like to see an episode where we blind date matchmake Brett during
Yes.
pop culture? We can ask the girls about shows they like, we can keep the pop culture vibes going.
What's
but
your
at the
favorite
end,
network? USA?
They go on a date. I think this is hilarious and great. And also, Brett has to happen immediately.
Pat the Plug.
That wasn't a no. That wasn't
Pat
a no
the
from Brett.
It
plumber
was not.
says, Brett, I'm 40, single, antisocial, and in recovery. It's highly regretted.
And I know how Brett sounds like when he says no because we invite him to parties and he says
no. And
So
hikes
it's
and
a
just
word
generally getting
that
food.
we hear often from
We're
Brett.
aware. We can
Correct.
read the energy when Brett is
Correct.
actually
Got
unhappy.
it.
At this point, I'm just setting off the crisis meter because you guys keep bothering me.
Because you want to get married. If only you had a wife to complain to. You know what I mean? But no wife for
Exactly.
you because you haven't tried yet.
Did it! Third crisis party. Thank you, guys. All right. We're if you guys keep this is gonna go on forever if you guys don't.
Listen, Brett, I have the
The
power
ninja-
of love on my side,
the
which is
ninja-
giving me energy to go on pretty much forever. I am rejuvenated by the grandiose thing of
Also-
marriage, and I think it's something that's honestly very plausible for both of you. So I was.
That's not what you're saying before the show to me, but okay.
No, I said that. I don't even know what I
We won't
said.
even repeat it. But no, the thing is, married men live longer. It would give you a whole life. If we're talking about building community and culture, you should have your own nuclear community, you and your wife. And then we have these hockey kids. That I'm
We
so
can
excited
complain about our wives together, Brett. Wouldn't that be
I
great?
can't wait. I can't wait.
So you admit it. You are
The ninja from Pop Culture Planet says Valentina on Hot Wings. That is all.
My wife?
Is that a girl that we know that's we're dating?
High
Brett up with?
Voltage 75 says Brett will get married
Brett, the
when
thing
Hannah
is-
Claire finishes the Fast and the Furious series.
Oh,
Fine,
wow.
I'm in. If that's what I need to do to get you to go on dates with ladies, then I'm in.
Derp Space 9 says it isn't that Brett is bad at parties. They're just the lame sort of parties where a bunch of people yammer at each other while listening to bad music.
Wrong.
I'm sorry. Are
I
you talking
can't
about our
confirm
podcast right now?
I
Because I'm
wasn't
mad.
there. Derp Space says it isn't. Oh, yeah, I said that one already. Otis Crinkle says Brett just use the line Noodles and Co. and chill. You could always use Noodles and Co. and chill. I heard that one works. It's got a 999.9.
Is that what you've been doing?
You had one. Brett had this whole thing about something he was going to say to a girl in a movie theater, which is somewhere he frequents outside the studio.
Ladies.
And then he never did it, as far as I know. And I am actually
I
mad
didn't have
about
that
it.
idea. Somebody else had that idea and said I had to use that idea, and I don't even remember what it was.
And now you're not married. So.
Raynor Chen says, "Please make a movie of Tiffany Gomez's plane experience with her and Brett's love story spliced in."
That's true. That's a good move.
Somebody could do that. That'd be great. Shane H. Wilder says, "Olivia shooting her shot." Well, I mean, it was a
just
shot.
get rid of the cat.
It was a
You
shot
can get
with
another
conditions,
one.
so you know.
Oh, there's a shot with conditions.
Jimmy Shelley says, "Just
Elaborating.
here to support Brett, you poor man." Thank you. And fine.
Do you know a lady he could potentially
Bang
marry?
Bang Lulu says it's time Brett settles down and finds himself a nice birthing person.
Yes, that's true.
Nice bonus hole.
9 says
hit-
married men live longer. Why does the caged bird sing? Is longer life worth living under the sword of Damocles?
Jesus.
Born free, don't submit
You
to
good?
the yoke.
You good, homie? You good?
Brittany Luna says it's about time to change the Crisis Party song. Noted, and yes, it is. I'll get to it. If
To
I
the
ever
wedding
get out of
march
here,
because
yes,
Brett's gonna get married this year.
DCNC says HCB Dane, please continue teasing Brett about his romantic life. More.
This isn't teasing, guys.
This
What
is
was
being-
teasing was making it public that Brett is bad at
Parties.
parties. Which, by the way, it was teasing, but it's also fact.
Yeah, it's not
You can have
wrong.
two things at once. They're not mutually exclusive.
This is us being supportive friends, and I hope you guys all do this to your friends. If they aren't putting themselves out there, you know, to potentially meet the love of their lives and raise their hockey babies, you guys should do this to your friends too.
At episode 500.
Oh, I cannot wait for this episode. It's gonna be so fun. Can I
No
host it?
fats. Only hot chicks.
Oh yeah, that's a rule.
Do I
No
get?
fat.
Do
I
I
get to be the fat person in the relationship.
Correct.
Everyone knows that.
Well, look, good.
Overdressed says I would love any show where Brett is comfortable and happy, but also dating show for Brett.
Dating
Brett's
show for
shot
Brett.
at love.
Dating
Yes,
show for
please.
Brett.
Dating show for Brett.
Dating show for Brett.
I love this. I think it's great. Also, look. Listen, Brett. We wouldn't do this if we thought you were weird.
Brett,
this is
listen. I feel like Brett's not listening.
I feel like Brett's not listening. His heart is not open.
And that's why he's bad at parties, because part of a party is like you go people, you talk with them.
You ask them
but you
questions.
gotta listen
You gotta
too.
listen, yeah.
You can't just talk about the USA Network all the time.
And the thing is, you have to get to know people, and Brett is good at that. He just didn't put himself in a position to do that. Right?
I agree.
He's constantly carrying the weight of the show on his back, and he needs someone who's there just to converse on a personal level. I'm excited for this episode. This is gonna be so fun.
I can see it coming.
Also, everyone in the chat will tell you they would tune in to watch you essentially play the dating games with people they have voted on and think you would be a good match with.
I'll watch.
I will watch and host. I'm excited about this.
Evan Perry for $2 says, plot twist, the dating show will match HCB and Brett.
Oh.
Nah. Unfortunately, no. Brett and I know that we are not destined for each other.
Do you want to live in Minnesota?
I don't.
Oh, well, there you go. It's fine ruined. It's that easy. Brett, you should change
Also,
locations.
you guys
just
have to
say
level with me.
France.
Brett-
And just a bunch of chicks will be like, I want to believe in France. I like croissants. This is my woman voice.
The thing is, if Brett is crossing a girl off for having a derpy cat, what do you think he'd do to the woman who berated him publicly about not getting married?
Just get rid of the
I'll
cat.
never get forgiven.
Listen, if you need to measure Brett Dasovic's undying love versus a derpy cat, fuck that derpy cat is what I'm saying.
Accurate.
Well, so maybe we have our first chair filled. Let us know.
I think we got it.
DD Megadoodoo97 says, how many crisis parties for Bretty to get married live on stream?
Well, that'll probably be like episode, what,
Brett, how many?
1,000?
No, 500.
Well, no, but like, I'm
2
just
weeks.
saying it won't happen for a while.
No, he'll get married then.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be such a good match. You know, they'll talk about USA Network. They'll talk about having
I love how
sodas, but
boring
Cuddy
you
back in
think
the
I am.
morning.
That's like the most Brett has nothing
Well, you're-
interesting to offer other
you're-
than
you're
why you're
good
not-
at parties.
it's why you're not good at parties.
You're not good at parties, so.
You know?
Okay, now I am being insulted. There's one more here from Derp Space 9. He says, remember, Brett, chances are you'll find a woman who is as serious about her commitments as Hannah Claire is about watching The Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, I am serious about watching it. I also am subscribed to no streaming services. So I'm waiting on my library card, and then I've got to check them out. And also I have to buy a DVD player. Like, I'm just telling you, it's not that I'm not committed. It's that sometimes good things take a long time. You have to wait for them and work for them.
Years even.
What I've learned
So
is
many
that
years.
apparently people like to super chat about me in my in this whole thing.
Because you're getting
yes.
married and
I
we're
was
playing the
just
dating
saying-
show. I cannot wait for the dating game episode. That's going to be so fun. Because we can still talk about pop culture.
With your host, Hannah Claire Bidwell and Dane.
And Dane
Fogg.
Fogg. Yeah, we're both in it.
Woo!
Dane and I are going to sit in this screen, and these girls are going to be here, and Brett's going to have to be in the background screaming. And we'll be like,
Well,
shut
I
up, Brett.
suppose this is the price I pay for having to ask people to help me in their spare time. But they're keeping themselves here later than they need to be.
Yeah,
by
the thing is, Brett doesn't care when he's talking about video games or comic books if we go late. But as soon as we started talking about getting married, Brett's like, guys, look at the time. We gotta
You know what,
go.
Brett? My wife understands, you know, because like we've made a lifelong commitment, and she knows that I care about this show, and I also care about this topic.
Okay, well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, one more here from DD Megadoodoo97 says, I'm sorry, I meant Brett, B-R-E-T-T.
I definitely thought earlier someone called you Bread, and I thought that was
There's
really funny.
an ongoing joke to spell my name as incorrectly as possible on here.
Okay, I'm just going to call you Bread from now on.
All right, guys. Before we go, thank you so much for all of that. That was a lot of fun to be heavily criticized for the last hour here on this podcast. Thank you so much for that. On one hand, it's insulting. On the other hand, my narcissistic side says, yes, please talk about me all you want, I guess.
He became Italian. Do you see it? Like,
Brett likes it because we're rooting for him and he wants the encouragement. He needs the words of affirmation, but it's hard for him to receive them. That's why he has to
that's all
come in
we're
the form
doing.
of public berating and teasing.
it's all we're doing.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, would you hit the like button on this video and would you subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed to it already? Why wouldn't you? After knowing what the conversation like this was like, who wouldn't want to tune in to watch something like this? But tune in. Please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Dane, my friend, let everyone know where they can find you.
Guys, I have my own battles too. My current battle is I am below the average number of followers on Twitter /Twix/X. Yikes. And you can help me solve my issues with inadequacy by following me on Twitter at Dane Font. And now I shall spell that out for you. DANEFONT. And at Dane Font on Twitter, you can send your entry for the episode 500 chance to date Brett Dasovic. I will skim through all the contestants. Ladies, if you're fat, do not send.
Accurate.
But if you're like a little chubby, you got a cute face, like send it over. Like, who's to say?
We like curves. It's just like,
You're like, who doesn't like curves?
I fully support this 100%. Please immediately tag Dane with all of your friends' Twitters. If they're cute, they like pop culture, and they potentially want to move when they're retired to Medford, Minnesota.
Exclusively.
The thing is, Dane is the marketing man extraordinaire. He's also the lead, proposal scanner in our office. He vets all potential people who are interested in people in our office. So this is a great idea. I'm so excited for episode 500 when we play the dating game with your favorite people and Brett Dasovic, who's going to get married as a result of this podcast.
Incredible.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for timcast.com. You should follow at timcastnews on Twitter and Instagram. It's the best. And if you want to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b, where I'm going to try and post more stuff that I'm doing that's not political. It's just my life. And I'm on that other platform that's more popular and Elon owns, and I'm HC Brimlow there. So,
and if you want to be part of Hannah Claire's life because she's also single, guys, you can send your submissions to me as well, and I'll judge both of them and I'll get both of them married, and then we could all have like 3 little families where our kids can grow up and be friends. Wouldn't that be nice? Like Pop Culture Crisis Part 2, the Electric Boogaloo, the sequel, and it's like little Brett, little Hannah, and little Dane, and they're like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?"
The only reason to submit your application to marry me to Dane is to hang out with Dane, because he is the best. He is the asset in this situation.
All right, guys, we got 2 more here. One from DC&C says, "With friends like these, Brettio." Yeah.
He likes us. He asked us to be here on purpose, guys.
Dear Derp Space 9 says, "I like watching people get pounded on, but I'm feeling sorry for Brett. I don't have feelings."
Then stop super chatting, because as long as you guys are super chatting, Dane and I are going to keep going.
Show goes on.
Also, it goes on off air, just so everyone knows.
All right, guys, thank you so much for all of that. If you would like to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram and on Twix at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. Pop Culture Crisis is here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is noon Pacific. Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify if you'd like to listen rather than watch this show. And if you'd like to follow the show on social media, we are on Twix at popculture_show, Facebook and TikTok at Pop Culture Crisis, Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. One more here from Bang Bang Lulu. He says, Brett, find a beautiful lady to breed and hang out with, maybe buy a house.
Travis Kelce said he was looking for a breeder on one of his podcasts, and now he's dating Taylor Swift. So I'm just saying, you can do it too,
You
Brett.
can date Taylor Swift.
You have a podcast and can say the word, "I'm looking for a breeder," and boom, the universe will be like, "Here we go, man."
Yesh says hostage party. Yes, we are technically in a hostage party right now.
But I think it's a hostage party because we're talking about marriage, and Brett wants us to stop.
Guys, we will be back with another episode tomorrow, hopefully with way less discussion about my personal life. See you tomorrow, guys. Later.
Bye.